I've got an aside. Let me ask
Okay.
both of you, what do you think about buying Infinity Edge as a juggler?
Oh, it's so fucking bad.
I'm down. I'm
No,
down.
you're stupid if you're
I'm down.
down.
If he got one crit, if he
No,
got
shut up.
one
Oh my
crit,
god.
no, if he got
That's
one
why you're not
crit
coaching
on
anymore.
Kobe,
This
he
is
would have
why
died.
you're not coaching
If he got
anymore.
one
Shut
crit,
up.
if
You're
he got
stupid.
one crit
Dumb.
on Kobe,
Dumb.
he would have
Fucking
died.
stupid.
I'm
Holy
so
shit.
down.
You're
Selfish,
so
you're
dumb.
a complete
Oh my
boss.
fucking
You are
god. You're
a
dumb.
complete
You
boss.
are
a
an
credit to
idiot.
Poland.
You are a
You are a
fucking
credit
idiot.
to Poland, my man. You are a credit to Poland.
This is going to be episode 43 of Listen Loco. Show's not actually dead. That was just a prank. It was all an elaborate marketing campaign by me and Loco. You know, kind of like the WWE. We said, right, what would be better, right? You know, obviously, Loco represents Vince McMahon in this scenario. It's his show, you know. We did a loser leaves town match, and I don't really know who lost that one. I think the viewers, but luckily they didn't leave town, Loco. And the show's going to continue on. And also now, I've had some of the basic things that a human requires: food, sleep, you know, recharge my soul, not have it torn apart by watching Counter Strike. So, with that in mind, hopefully we can all bear in mind that there can be lag when people are on the other side of the world, and not try and react like Deft in season 4 in a team fight to every single fucking CC. See what I did there? Pretty good analogy. Sadly, I just remembered none of our fans watching the show were around in season 4. They just repeat things that they heard from other people around in season 4. Hence why 99% of things we get mad at, you actually realise later on the person doesn't even know what they're talking about, why you get mad. So that could really be a motto for this show in many ways. That could be the tagline, right? So keeping that in mind, we've got Veteran here, and obviously he's been on the show. Have you actually been on Listen Loco, or was it just the ones we did for Worlds? Did you actually come on this particular show?
Actually, was the one I did early December, Listen Loco. We did like predictions for...
We might have done like a roster one, maybe. Okay.
I'm not sure it was Listen Loco, but
Okay.
I've always called it Listen Loco, so...
Yes. I like to think, Loco, a Veteran, as, believe it or not, this is actually one of the most generous actual descriptions of a Veteran he'll ever receive, which is, bearing in mind the episode, which was infamous last episode with LS, he's like an European LS, but who actually is less likely to never come back on the show again. So there we go. Because the thing is, if anyone knows, like, people who
Dorian, you're cutting out a bit, by the way.
The internet will not let Forg1ven's give me, like, praise. It's not allowed. It's one of the rules.
Yeah.
I can't have too much praise. My ego just inflates too hard.
I think of you as just as opinionated LS, but not as well marketed or advertised.
Yeah, that would be, yeah. I mean, I need to actually get into streaming and stuff, but it's difficult when you're going around Airbnbs.
Yo, so can you kind of explain to me, like, format for EU Masters? There's one team from every, I guess, tournament, like one from Spanish League, one from Ultra Liga, one from...
Not just one. Right now in the playing groups there is, and these are like the lower seeded teams, but every single country has like an X amount of teams that they can send around typically too. So like Mad Lions and Splice Vipers are in from Spain, for example. Splice Vipers are in the main tournament, and Mad Lions are playing through play-ins right now. And play-ins is what's going on right now. And Mad's just lost to Diablos from the UK, who came in second, and Fnatic Academy came in first over there. Rogue Academy came in first in Poland. Devils 1 is the second team that we'll be playing through play-ins. And over in Spain, LDLC actually came in first, and Misfits Academy came in second. And LDLC is a really interesting one because they almost had a perfect split over in
I thought
France.
I thought LDLC was a French org.
Yeah. Oh, did I misspeak? Okay, yeah, in France,
Okay.
it's LDLC and Misfits Academy. I
Okay.
don't know who I said
You
otherwise.
said Spain.
Hopefully I'm...
Okay.
Okay, Spain is Splice Vipers and Mad Lions. I don't know why I said Spain. Probably because I'm used to thinking of Spain as like the most dominant region by default, but France is probably going to look like that, at least on the backs of LDLC, who are looking incredibly strong right now.
Okay.
So,
So you get your first seed. Holy shit! Did everything DC for you? Oh, there you.
Right. Can you actually see me now?
Nice.
Yeah, you're back.
Yes, now we
It's almost like you should have put the region on my actual fucking continent. Not your fucking home region.
Anyone can change their reason, by the way, Thorin. So I thought, what is
Think
it?
it through. Anyway, keep going.
Alright, we can go back to the original point, Thorin. What did you think of veteran?
No, I could hear. What was stupid was I could hear all that, but for some reason, like you weren't getting any of my camera or thing or whatever. So I heard what you said anyway. Just doing a rundown of the EU Masters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't think there's that much that's interesting to talk about EU Masters, mate. Bearing in mind, there's 4 playoff series happened in the LEC. So, what I think I would say is this: remember at the beginning of this episode that LEC is not the same format as LCS. So in LEC we have, I noticed they've given it an actual term because it's complicated to call it like a single elim bracket that feeds into a double elim bracket. So what they've done is they've called the match that Seed 1 and Seed 2 play, which is kind of in an upper bracket, they call that the Juggernaut match. And basically, whoever lost that, in this case it was Origen, was going to play the winner of the 4 teams that started off the playoffs. And that obviously, there's no spoilers, if you watch this show you already know it's Fnatic. So we've got through that, right? We obviously can't go into all 4 series and predict the next series and do 5 full series of analysis in depth. So what I would suggest is this: we spend less time on the first 2 and then do more on the next 2.
Okay.
So I would start with probably the easiest one to dismiss. I would say is probably the Fnatic Vitality one, because this is one that was supposed to be on paper. People hoped a really great match. Vitality, all these early game strengths throughout the split. Fnatic, obviously, pretty good in that respect themselves, and were on an insane heater coming into the playoffs. But it ended up being pretty one-sided. So what do you think of this matchup, Veteran? Why was Vitality not more vital? Why were they not able to give us like a great playoff series?
Vitality seems to start playing really, really hard around their top side for the second half of the split, and this isn't like that bad a thing. Kabashar was probably their most consistent player by a significant margin. But if you go versus Fnatic and you're considering playing top side, which incidentally is what Splice also at least did for their first game, you find that it doesn't affect Fnatic's game plan at all, because they have always been sacrificing Whippo in the second half of the split in favor of just gaining a huge numbers advantage around bot and collapsing as hard as they can around Reckless and getting him ahead. So if you go for this kind of playstyle against them, you might be thinking, oh, they're weakest top, so if we play through top, that will be a really good way to go. But AD carry is such a strong role right now. First Drake is such a strong thing for this whole season. You kind of give every advantage Fnatic wants anyway. They've played without topside for most of the split, so this was right in their element, and that's why Vitality just couldn't really do anything to them.
There were times where Bwipo survived the dives really well and like the ganks really well with GP, but one thing I was super surprised by is if Fnatic is so heavily playing towards bot and that's their style, it seems like Bwipo is not used to it. He's always playing up and his wave is always pushing away, and he's always playing so aggressive for someone that's not going to get resource. So it was really curious watching him be so aggressive and so far up in lane every single time. If what you said is true, like they're always going to be playing towards bot.
Yeah, the wave thing is actually really, really interesting because they do drag Whippo down on what would be really bad teleport timings on any other season. And they started doing this around that point where top lane basically only had Yorick for any sort of relevance as a carry. And even that was a champion that you could essentially ignore. And once he hit Trinity Falls, he was basically the equivalent of 2 champions anyway. So they seemed to decide that it doesn't matter if Whippo ends up down like 40, 50 CS, so long as he's performing a function to give Reckless breathing room on the bot side. They would drag him down at really bad times. And this was actually something that, on the EU Masters point, because I know we're competing with them for viewership, that's something that Rogue actually did to a lot of success as well in the EU Masters, and it's something that Finn brought with him to LEC and got them their only 2 wins with. Just sacrificing topside almost entirely doesn't seem to impact the game too much this season because of the types of champions you're playing there. There was one really funny instance partway through the split where they dragged Whippo down. He lost like 20 CS top. He lost legit like 3 waves top. It was on such a bad timing for him to do it. On Sion, he came down, didn't even get a single assist, went back top, was perma behind whole game, and they still really stomped that game. So it seems to be something that's been working out for them. It might just be the way that the meta is right now.
Wait, that cannot be the correct way to play aggressive and to play far up when you're gonna play towards boss fight. It's not something that's working out for them. It's something working out for them despite Whippo doing it. It's not working out because he's doing it.
repeat like the beginning of that rant. This is purely about they drag him down on TP timings when the wave would be bad for him to do so. So he'll lose a lot of stuff top. This is not to excuse stuff like his Jarvan engages, for example, that you would have seen in the playoffs and stuff. Like those kinds of things when he's going really ham around the top side. Yeah, that's not really excusable. He does definitely play too deep right now. It doesn't seem to be a place that he's comfortable with. And it has something that did work out for him on a couple of games. There was an Aatrox game that he had partway through the split versus Soaz, I think, where he was going monster ahead. So yeah, I'm not excusing those kinds of tendencies. I'm just saying that as a playstyle that Fnatic have found, this seems to be the way that is working. It doesn't seem to matter how far behind Whippo gets. I'm definitely not excusing Whippo's over-aggressiveness, because I don't think that he's like a top laner this split in the way that Cabochard definitely has shown that he is.
Sure. Well, I mean, that was actually, for me, one of the things that was depressing about this series is I'm with a lot of other people. I think Cabochard for MVP is a pretty good shout if you look at like the team he was playing for, the conditions he was playing under, where they didn't just play around him all the time. And this series, if anything, showed more of that. Like, if I had to pick out the player I think played the worst on Vitality in this series, it's probably Mowgli, because he did so well in the first half of the split, and then he couldn't do shit for Cabochard in this series. Like, Cabochard had no resources whatsoever. Like, how's he supposed to do anything? Like, he still played okay, but there's nothing he could do. And then Jizuke just, like, had a billion deaths. Like, this was, like, if those are the two conditions, that we're not going to get Cabochard going and Jizuke's going to die all the time, and the jungler doesn't have any connection to either, how are you ever going to win the series if you're Vitality? The whole thing everyone criticised them for is that unless they get these early game advantages, they can't do anything like 20 minutes into the game. So, that, like, yes, that if Yamato Cannon gives the same speech he gave at Worlds, that sounds great until you realise, like, oh, but wait, what we do actually doesn't work in League of Legends? All right, well, that case you fucked then. See you next year. Like, what?
I think they're so overly romanticized as a team. Like, do whatever you guys want to do. To play your own League of Legends. Don't play with the global meta.
They were like, here's one thing, Loco. Here's the analogy I'll give you quickly, okay? They were like someone, right, who's a bit overweight, and then, like, here's the thing. If people are really harsh, right?
Be careful.
Listen, people are really harsh, then they'd obviously go like, you're overweight, you're fat, just get into shape, right? Now, that's not necessarily what you should say to that person, right? What you should maybe say to them is something like, have you ever considered, working out a little bit more? Maybe change your diet up a little bit? It's fine. Listen, like who you are, be comfortable in your own skin, but, seek to improve yourself, of course. The problem is, Yamato Cannon's over there, like, nah, fuck them haters, man. Like, body positivity. Like, yes, slay. Yeah, go on, Jizuki, play whatever the fuck you want, homie. Oh, AD carries the middle. Yeah, why not? Yeah. It's like, that's the problem. That's exactly the problem right there. He should have been the friend who just encouraged them to improve a little bit, but at the same time, liking who they are, because you know what? Inside, they're a lovely person. The problem is, they could never actually become. Don't know how the analogy works here in actual League of Legends, but whatever. You see where I was going. Anyway, Loco, continue.
Well, if you didn't try to kill the show last time, you definitely did this time. Holy shit!
Why does everyone watch the show at Tabelard or something? Keep going.
Oh my god. I'm just not even gonna comment on it. Yeah, but Vitality throughout the entire split, I criticized them for being one-dimensional and playing in a way that was very, like, limited and also, like, not developing in that sense. And then everyone's like, Loco, you're a Vitality hater. They're getting results. And come playoff, like, this style is going to flourish a lot more and they're going to get better. I'm like, okay, all I see is one-dimensional League of Legends, and then even towards the end of the split, it looks like one-dimensional League of Legends. And then Bwipo came out and said it in the Euphoria podcast, where he's like, we know exactly what they're going to do, and then we're going to counter it. And then I'm like, okay, even Vitality should know that they know exactly what they're going to do. And they literally showed up and then did exactly what they were going to do. It was like, okay, we got what we thought we were going to get, and then you lost the exact same way we thought you were going to lose. So I was actually pretty disappointed. As much as I hated them, I thought they would switch it up a little bit, or they would have another layer to their game, and they didn't. It was exactly what we were expecting.
I mean, I think this was the team where the first game draft, they basically had a draft that was really good until you hit level 4, and then you start losing lanes, and they were going into like Vayne Karthus and all of this stuff. No, I think it was like Ezreal, Braum, like Lucian top. It was all this stuff, and it was like it's gonna give you like Lane Kingdom in the very early phase of the game, but like Ezreal Bomb starts losing out to Vayne Alistair after your first fucking recall. Like it's not anywhere near as strong as you think it is. You're not going to be able to close the game out anywhere near as fast as you think you can. An enemy team has a fucking Carthus Vayne coming in hot in the mid to late game, and you're just obviously going to lose on this. But they were a team that for the majority of the split, they relied on having these pressure lanes so that Mowgli could just try to sit on top of the enemy jungler, which is also how they played with Kirkis, which is also to an extent how they played with Gilius. The way that they have played jungle has never really changed. Just the jungler they've played it with has kind of always gotten a bit better the more that they've gone. But this way of playing jungle is just not right. This way of playing at the early game is abusable. It will net you a good amount of wins in BO1s, but I agree with you. It was always going to be figured out. It was always going to collapse. They were very, very one-dimensional. Them and like Schalke were the two teams that had like a really good early game plan, but they had like one really good early game plan, and you could figure them out.
I thought they would develop though. Like they went to Worlds, like, and throughout the entire split, this is exactly what you're gonna do, and in the playoff also. Then that's just kind of disappointing.
Nah, I mean they didn't develop last season. Like I don't see why they would develop this season.
The other thing as well for me is like this is where actually their split performance wrecked them in the end, because the fact that they had to play Fnatic, that was probably one of the worst. It was basically the worst matchup they could have had in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like if they'd have literally just finished one place higher in Splice's place, they could have had a chance against SK. They could have won that series, could have gone to the next round. They still would have lost eventually. They never would have gone to the final or anything like that, but at least they would have had something to do there. Fnatic was one of the worst teams they could have played at this point in time.
I think they're screwed even if they play against SK, to be honest. Like, the last game of the split that they had was against SK-Gaming, and Mowgli was 3 levels down, level 5 for level 8 versus Self-Made. I'm not sure that's the guy that you want to int your jungle against, to be honest.
Alright. Doran, do you want to move us on to the next series?
Yeah, sure. So the other series obviously was Splice against SK, and this is one where, okay, Splice actually, by the end of the split, was one of the best teams. Like just a recognizable fact. Admittedly, they were a gatekeeper team, but they were doing pretty well by the end. And SK obviously came in a mad heater to even make playoffs. Like that was actually very, very unexpected. In this series, though, if you put it this way, if you don't like Vitality, you actually just got to see, like, you know, them get their just desserts against Fnatic, basically. It was like, right, good. That's everything that I hate about Vitality, getting slammed into a wall. The problem with this series was, this was fucking Splice, and I'm like that guy out of fucking Jesse out of Breaking Bad, like, you can't keep getting away with it! It's like, how the fuck are they allowed to get away with this shit? Like, what's mad is, they were even winning the first game against SK and trying to drag this motherfucker out to like 700 minutes. Then every other game was like, even the ones they win, Loco, it's almost like this team plays for stats or something, because it's like, well, we should win the game now. Give it another 20 minutes. Maybe it's like the British Sporting Chance or something like, well, it'd be unfair to just end the game now. We've got to give them a couple more team fights, haven't we? Like, let's contest a few more dragons before this is over. Like, this was a shit series, completely shit series. I don't blame SK. They couldn't really do fuck all, basically. They shouldn't even have won the first game, in my opinion. But Splice did not win with any class at all for me.
Splice actually has very quietly good players. Like Kabe, I think, is someone that's incredibly like quietly good. Humanoid, someone that's incredibly quietly good. Same thing for Vegetachi. You could say somewhat for Jersey and North Karen, but I don't think they're as good. But yeah, they're a very quietly good team, and their team fighting is really good. The way they just know how to get to a certain point in the game and then win in that certain point of the game, and they're great at replicating it, and if you let them do it, they're a great team, and SK just let them do it.
Wait a minute. I've just bring you up on one point there. Just the way you phrased that, okay? When you said they know how to get to a certain point in the game, no, that's the only choice they have, is to get that point.
No.
And then you're right, at that point they can win the game. I'm with you on that. But like, the idea they had any say in getting to that point, like, that's all they could do. They could only lose before then, basically.
Okay, I'm not saying they're great at stalling, but they know how to win from that point in the game.
Yes,
like,
agreed.
Once Kabe gets his item, once Humanoid gets his item, and they're in a team fighting phase, they know exactly how to win the game. And for Kabe, like someone that got voted first All-Pro EULCS AD, he has negative laning stats. I think that's unheard of for someone that has like negative laning stats across the board to be considered the best AD carry in a region. This guy
Yeah.
does not get ahead in lane, and he's considered the best AD carry. So imagine how good his team fighting is and how consistent he is.
I actually had a rant on Elitist United about Kobe, and that was released like the day before Kobe got announced as like first All-Pro AD carry, because I was getting very annoyed that he was being called incredibly consistent. When if he has consistency in anything in the laning phase, it's losing it. He was like always doing some sort of fuck up in lane, and I didn't understand how that could be excused just because Splice, and this is kind of where I disagree with you, Foen, have drafted in such a manner that it's really difficult to close out games against them so they can get to that point. Though I do agree they have no choice but to draft in a specific way. They are taking stuff like Poppy, like Shen, like Azir is a very high priority pick for them. Vel'Koz, all this stuff that's really difficult to just collapse on and close the game out if you play a certain way. And then they play really hard for red side buff control if they're on red side. And then eventually Kobe gets to 2 items on Vayne, and then oh my god, Vayne's really, really strong on 2 to 3 items. Who could fucking predict this? And then they win every team fight with their hyper late game scalers, and this is apparently enough to be all pro AD carry.
Well, that's
and
the
I
joke, isn't it?
It's
like
His team
it's
fighting
like
is
if you wanted to trick someone who didn't watch the game into picking the AD carry as MVP, right? You'd pick someone who had an amazing amount of kills, right? Well, the best way to get loads of kills as an AD carry is have the game go to 50 minutes and do about 8 team fights in a row that you just narrowly win 7 of them and then close the game. It's like that's why I joked. It's like they play for stats. It's like they were trying to make Kobe the fucking MVP.
I think
I think definitely with Xerxes gameplay you can definitely see where they might be playing for stats, because there's so much more this guy could do on picks like Rek'Sai that he brought out in playoffs that he just doesn't do, because he's basically concerned with clearing his jungle as fast as he possibly can. And as a result, it's really easy to play jungle against this kind of play, so he doesn't really do much to set up his lanes at all. But he ends up with one of the highest gold stats in pre-15 minutes. Splice as a whole have one of the highest pre-15 minutes gold stats, but they have the longest game time by a significant margin.
How does he have negative goal stats personally? And your team has positive goal stats. Wait, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Well, because Xerxes is power farming like a motherfucker, and
because Xerxes
Humanoid
still
is quite good at
fucking
CS.
feral flares in the game, mate. He's like that cunt. You know, the Master Yi that just goes off for 40 minutes.
Legit, if you went on Oracle's, I haven't checked Oracle's Elixir for this for 2 weeks, but last time I checked, it was legit Xerxes of like plus 456, and like the next guy was plus 150, and everyone else was around the 0 or negative margin.
Jesus.
Like that's how far ahead Xerxes was, and this was carrying a lot of their gold in the early game. They had significant gold advantage. They're like top 2 in that, but they are also by like 2 to 3 minutes the longest average game time in the LEC. They are the only average game time in the LEC that is higher or equal to the North American average game time in the LEC, despite having this level of a league. That's how their mid game is. That's how absolutely garbage it is.
And they're a very self-conscious team then. They know exactly what they're good at, they know exactly what they're bad at, and they're able to win games. Because instead of like, if you force this team to be early game, then they would be fucking shitty because they don't have the tools to do it. But they have the tools.
Wouldn't win as much. But if you don't ever force them to do that, then they're not going to develop. And this has always been like a criticism that I've had of like North American teams, is that they will only really play like one certain style per team, and once you face them on the world stage, they're super easy to figure out. They are all vitality over there, not in the way that they play the game, but in the fact that they are easy to figure out in that sense. And you never develop if you just stick to these things to just try to win as many best of ones and get as high up as you possibly can. And Splice are never developing as a result. This has been my criticism, because I agree with you. The roster on paper is really, really strong, and this is why when I was last on this show, I said they were my dark horse based on roster strength. I think most players on there are really good. I'd agree with you, Xerxes a bit overrated, and I'd agree with Zertnoskeren, at least in the second half of the split, as being a bit inconsistent. But I think overall this is a really, really strong roster that does deserve to be a top 4 team, and deserves to go higher, but they don't play the game properly, and they don't even try at this point.
Really, by the way, just as a quick aside, Loco, like I don't know if you saw this, but basically Peter Dunn, who was using before, I'm not sure what his actual title now is, but before he was the head coach last year of Splice, and now they have that guy Duke, who's like a French guy, who's the coach. And so I'm not sure what the distribution is there, but the way Peter Dunn commented sounded as though the Duke guy's the main coach and he's just like overseeing it. And basically, Peter Dunn, towards the end of the split, got like offended that people were analysing their team exactly in this manner, as like, you know, if they get to their late game, they can win the game. Mid game shit. And he was like, no, like people aren't giving us credit. It's just a narrative among analysts and journalists. We have improved the mid game. Go on, Clown Fiesta. Open this fucking VOD up on your stream and tell me all the sick moves your team was making in the mid game. Because I would agree with Veteran. I think actually they have somewhat underrated players, assuming you do a reasonable rating of them and don't then say they're all the best in their fucking role. But they have pretty decent lineup overall. Sometimes they could get early leads, and we know they can win at the end of the game. So actually, the entire mid-game is basically where you'd be fucking coaching them, surely, teaching them the protocols of what to do. And none of that showed in this series, and you only won, basically, because SK just fucking couldn't do anything at all. And then later on, you did nothing else in the rest of the playoffs. We'll obviously get to the rest of that later, but you're completely irrelevant. So I would say, that's an example of where, I know why people get mad at, narratives and stuff, but that narrative was legit. Legit, because under pressure, is what happened.
I'm sure from Peter's point of view, whenever they worked on things in scrims, their mid game did look better, but it's just not showing on stage. But that's what we see on stage. Your mid game is still fucking shitty and it's still a mess. I'm sure you improved it in scrims, but we don't get to watch your scrims. If you want to show us your scrim VODs as it's happening, then sure, then we can talk about it and be like, okay, you're improving in mid game. But what we see is what we're going to talk about, and what we see is a shitty mid game. Also,
there were 2 games where they went. Oh, you can go first if you want.
Well, I kind of want to talk about SK also. SK, I thought they would have a little bit more firepower, and I thought they'd be a little bit more interesting. But after game 2, it was just, why are you even here? I was so hyped for them, because a team that's out of playoff contention, making playoff, they usually give it their all. They're we have nothing to lose. We're not even supposed to be here, guys. But that's not what SK felt like. SK felt okay, fuck everything. We're done. We can't beat this team. We're just gonna... They just crumbled so much.
Okay, I'll talk about SK, but just a final thing, just to at least throw some positive light on Splice, is that they did at least try twice in the playoffs to do a straight-up 1-3-1 composition. Though one of them was more like a poke composition. That was the first game against Fnatic. Versus SK in game 3, they did do a 1-3-1 composition. They did it horribly. The game still dragged on for 5 to 7 minutes longer than it should have. They messed up that setup so many times. They got it right at least once. That was a fucking miracle. And then they actually ended up winning the game off of that. But that's too little too late, they spent so much time playing around their strengths in the regular split that they weren't a versatile team like the KMK here. On the topic of SK, SK basically qualified on the strength of 2 players. Crownshot would sometimes have some really, really strong games on late game hyper carries
Jinx.
only. So basically Tristana Jinx, yeah. So the Tristana game that he had basically qualified them. Where he was playing against Upset, who was a phenomenal lady carry, though obviously hasn't had too good a split. You can still tell that Upset is really talented at the very least. I think we'd all agree on that. And then Selfmade, who has had probably one of the most phenomenal rookie debuts that we have seen in a long time. No one expected this. When I was last on this show, we were debating who would get MVP, and it was well, Nemesis will probably get it because he's on Fnatic, and Fnatic
rookie of the
split.
And
he'll get it by
Rookie of the split,
rookie of the split. And I was well, I think Humanoid will probably end up deserving it. We never even mentioned Selfmade because it was just a given for us that a mid lane would be the one to have this level of impact. But Selfmade basically 1v9 this team all the way to playoffs. And you can't really just get into the top 4 of a region just on the strength of individual players like that. So if they did keep powering through, I would have been quite worried for what that says about the strength of the region as a whole. In a similar way for how if Splice ended up top 3, the way that they are playing right now, that would also make me worry about the strength of the region as a whole. Though I could somewhat see it happening maybe towards the end there, but obviously it didn't work out. Crownshot also didn't really have a good series. They didn't put him on these hyper carries he's performed really well on. His Kalista game wasn't really that good. They put Whirlib on a split pusher, and he was doing the overextensions that he has done the entire time. He went for deep vision when he should go for shallow vision, which prevented him going for certain towers at moments when he could have. Instead, they have to opt into neutral objective team fights because he doesn't know how to split push properly. You have a lot of issues with this team, to be honest. That just 2 players isn't enough to make up for. So I would have been worried if they made it further.
I've got an aside. Let me ask both of you, what do you think about buying Infinity Edge as a jungler?
Oh, it's so fucking bad.
I'm down.
No,
down.
you're stupid if you're
I'm
down.
If he got one crit, if he
No,
got
shut
one
up. Oh
crit-
my god.
No, if he got
That's
one
why you're not
crit
coaching
on
anymore.
Kobe,
This
he
is
would have
why
died.
you're not coaching
If he got
anymore.
one
Shut
crit,
up.
if
You're
he got
stupid.
one crit
Dumb.
on Kobe,
Dumb.
he would have
Fucking
died.
stupid.
I'm
Holy
so
shit.
down.
You're
Selfie,
so
you're
dumb.
a complete
Oh my
boss.
fucking
You are
god, you're
a
dumb.
complete
You
boss.
are
a
an
credit to
idiot.
Poland.
You are a
You are
fucking
a credit
idiot.
to Poland, my man. You are a credit to Poland.
Like there's
What an absolute man. Static Shiv is better, but you are an absolute
you are
man.
stupid.
You really want to
are
go for
fucking dumb. There's something called what is it? There's something called one item wonder items. So most offensive items, most offensive items scale with each other. Like critical chance and attack damage and attack speed and armor pen. All these stats work well with each other, and by itself, the items itself aren't efficient, but when you get more of them, they become more and more efficient. But there are certain items like Tiamat. It doesn't really scale with other items. So it's a very good one item wonder. Trinity Force, it doesn't really scale well with other items. So they're very great single items to get if you're trying to be an offensive powerhouse. Infinity Edge is not one of them. Infinity Edge amplifies critical chance, amplifies the other stats that you have. And if you only buy Infinity Edge as your attack item, it does not fucking work. Like, it's just common sense. Like, why are you buying it?
By the way, though, it did lead to one of the funniest moments in the series, which was fucking garbage, as we've said. Don't go and watch it. Like, if you're at all interested, just listen to what we said. Don't bother watching the series. Mm-hmm. But the good moment in the series was when Norscaran was, like, pointing out that the Infinity Edge was on the champion. It was like, that's legit. That was funny, actually.
Okay, so...
Yes, but... okay, so it's a very, very solo queue build, and it's just basically predicated on the fact that you can get your four attacks off obscenely fast. At which point, the chance of getting a crit is literally 58% on that champion if you do the maths. And he only needed one crit, and Kobe was complete one shot. It's insanely solo queue build, and he was basically saying, "I don't trust my team at this point." Yes. Which, if you had been watching how his team was playing, is completely fair enough. So you went very all or nothing on this, and I understand why he did it. Objectively, it is not a good build.
Thank you.
But it's fucking. But I completely respect why he did it. If I was a jungler in that game, I might have done it as well, to be honest, at that point. Because if he doesn't one-shot Kobe in that scenario, the game is lost. He is not getting his dive body composition off the way that his team has been playing, the way that they have been getting prior. It's not happening in the game. So I understand why he went for what was based just above a coin flip of a chance of one-shotting Kobe before the fight and winning the game for his team. And if you got one crit off, we would be saying something completely different here right now. But I respect it entirely. I wouldn't recommend doing this as a first time. There is a static Shiv first build that is actually more viable than this, but in that scenario in the game, it wouldn't have helped him one-shot Kobe, which is all he was going for there.
Let's say he got the crit off and he killed Kobe. I would be saying the same shit. I would still be saying the same shit.
Probably.
Just because it worked, it's not good. It's fucking dumb. Just because it worked, because it's not good. Like
because self-made is willing to go for stuff like this, though. That's the line of thinking that has led him to be able to carry this team. Not because he builds crap items like this all the fucking time or something, but because if he realizes what he needs to do to win the game from this point with the resources that he has, and he sees this is literally the best possible chance I have of winning the game at this point, and he fucking does it. If he went the other way, the team wouldn't play properly around it, and they would definitely lose. So it wasn't even like a second of questioning in his mind. He just went for it, and I completely respect that attitude. And that is the kind of thing that does make a clutch player. And we have a clutch player on what is a team that all of us thought was going to be a bottom 3 team, rightfully so based on strength of roster, and he has made so many, I wouldn't say somewhat like risky decisions, but so many split-second, completely confident decisions like this to solo carry his team all the way here. So I like the attitude. I wouldn't discourage the attitude. I wouldn't tell a jungler on a good team to do this kind of thing, and I wouldn't even tell a jungler on a bad team to do this kind of thing, but I do respect the hustle with this.
Doran, just move us on, please.
So, okay, what we'll do is, obviously, we'll just talk about Fnatic Splice now, since we've set these two teams up. And if when I said Splice was playing against SK, they were getting away with it still, they absolutely did not get away with it in this series. I'll just go ahead and tell everyone the spoiler. I don't even need to say Splice lost, because only one game even got to 40 minutes. So, you know they lost the game. Because guess what? That's the mid-game, homie. And anyway, enough of that. They got wrecked. So this was actually a fucking shit series from Splice, but at least the good thing for this one is, for me at least, it showed like the continuing strength of Fnatic. So come on, start us off, Veteran. Give us your first thoughts on this one.
The absolute best description of Splice comes in game 2 of this game, where they do the Omega cheesy lane swap as if getting a lead
Oh my
early
God.
game has ever been the issue. They get fucking 6 kills on Kobe. He is on a free item Tristana at 19 minutes.
All pro
And
AD
then
carry, probably carries the game, right?
And then we fast forward 16 extra minutes, and then they win the game.
Exactly.
It took so fucking long from that point to win, purely on the basis of the map setups. It was so horrible to watch. There was a point where they rotated Sion down to mid, and they rotated Triss down to bot, and they dove, and they got a kill, and they're now 5v4 on this side. And what do they do with Sion mid, with top bouncing from fucking tier 2, and a full man advantage on this half of the map, and on the entire map, well, they send Sion back top, they send Tristana to race to farm, pick up red, let's take Baron Vision, boys, let's sit in brush. They get nothing off of it. It is the absolute best description of what Splice is and are. It doesn't matter what kind of lead they have, what kind of champions they are playing, what their objective in the game is. They don't know how to play it out at this point, and it is so horrible to watch. They know how to force the fight, they don't even know what to do if they win it. I absolutely hated watching that, because it's like anyone else gets this fucking... Imagine if Reckless had free item Tristan at 19 minutes. Game is completely over at 22 minutes, most likely. But on this team, that's just not doable.
Oh my God.
So,
Well,
yeah.
let's start with the lane swap. So people that are saying the lane swap was brilliant, the only thing that was good about the lane swap actually is Whipple probably never played in a lane swap meta, so he doesn't know what to do in a lane swap. So he got dove, and then they got a kill off that, and they swapped backwards. But lane swaps right now are completely undoable. So there's something called turret fortification. It lasts for 5 minutes. It makes every turret other than the first turrets in bot lane take 50% less damage from all sources. So every other turret is 50% stronger than the bot lane turret. So it might just be HP on turret, right? But that's not the thing. There's turret plating right now. So if you are able to get more hits on turret, that's something like 450 gold if you're able to get multiple platings. So like lane swap is in a terrible state right now, and it should never ever fucking work. And the only reason they got a lead was because Whippo fucked up, burned his flash early, and stayed under turret and got dove and gave up the kill, and they swapped right back.
By the way,
Well,
can I
that
just ask
plus
you
the fact...
Oh, go on, veteran.
Okay, well, that plus the fact that the reason the lane swap works so effectively in this specific scenario is because Boxer started on blue buff. So he would have to be pathing towards top side to go for a defense, which won't even matter in a proper lane swap scenario where your jungler is pathing towards your geo lane. Because in that scenario, they're just simply going to dive you 3v2 on a level advantage anyway. So it doesn't really matter so much. So as a result, even if they somehow knew, just purely on the basis of Brox's buff start, there's no configuration now of the swap where they don't get completely dick. Because say Broxer goes from blue buff and then goes straight towards bot side when enemy jungler has gone from red buff towards top side, he now is going to lose 3 quadrants of the jungle if he doesn't show top side as well. So there's absolutely no configuration of this where Splice don't get an advantage. The only way that you could counter that early advantage is just by doing early scouting. If you do early scouting, an enemy does a lane swap scenario here, it's completely lost for them, because like Loco says, you're just going to end up trading turret plating. You even have a cannon advantage, so you could theoretically get some more damage down than they can. All these factors that have made lane swaps unviable are still in place. All they did was cheese early kills and burn flash. Like that's all that they were able to do with this, and it's not a viable way to play the game.
Okay, so
You think... Oh, go on then. Keep going.
So one thing I do want to mention is the casters are wrong, so I want to get it clear for everyone. Turret fortification still exists. It still functions as normal. Vedius just made a mistake. I heard like production gave him bad info, so there was like so much arguments about it. Just go check Leaguepedia. Turret fortification still does exist.
This is why I mute the cast, guys.
Anyways, go ahead, Dorian.
All right, so what I wanted to ask was this was like a series where... Am I taking crazy pills or something? How was Whippo in any way a fucking really good player in this series? Like, this guy made so many stupid ass mistakes in this. Like, what about why wouldn't he just dove the fucking fountain? Like, what was the point of that? Like, game was over.
Oh my God.
That was the stupidest shit
that,
I've seen in a long time. Like, you know what? I actually think, I know in their team, part of what was their kind of the quest to become a good team again was figuring out the identity of the team and some of the shot calling elements, etc. But I feel like Whippo here's the thing. He is a good player, but he also, to me, represents the worst elements of this Fnatic team because they're the team. They remind me of like old school LPL teams where like if you want to just have stupid fights, they're like, oh, can I get in on this? It's like there's a saying, you might like this, Loco. There's a saying in Ireland, right, that goes, is this a private fight or can anyone get in? Like, that's what fucking Fnatic's like in these games. Like, they could just win some of the games. They're ahead. They have the kills. They have the comp. It's like, they're just like, do you want to come and join us in the mod here, having a stupid-ass fight? They're like, yep, sure thing. They just chuck off the trousers and they go. And Whipple's the player who loves to do it as well. Like, what is this shit? Like, that's pretty sweet. If they end up winning this split, I don't want to see this team at fucking MSI. It's going to be pressing.
I get why Whipple looked so good last year, and I thought he was a smart player. He's like, oh, we have so much pressure from bot side or from mid lane. We have so much pressure from top lane. I also need to build pressure so Broxah can play for crap, and then I'll get backup, and then I'll be like the strong point where Reckless and Hylissang are more of the weaker point, and they're just more neutral. Like, I thought he was playing a role that he understood very well, and that's why they were playing him over Thoats, because he can get more pressure, because he's better on carries. And then we go into next year, and then he's doing the exact same thing. You don't have caps anymore. Sometimes there was like an early part of the meta that was about tanks, not about carries, and about playing back and playing more towards bot, and he's doing the exact same thing. It's not that he was smart. He was always this player, and it was just perfectly working out for him last year.
The analogy, Loco. Imagine you were playing with someone, right, and everything's going perfect, and you're all just playing so well, right, that you're just stomping everyone, and all the time you're stomping everyone. This guy in the other lane's just laughing like, and you're just going, that's weird. I mean, he's getting into it. It's fun. We're all having fun here. Now imagine you're playing the same game, and you were like losing the game, and then you say, hey, they said, even though he's dying, you're like, There's something wrong with him. What the fuck's... That's what Whipple's doing. Like, we all thought he was just having fun with us.
Yeah.
This is just who he is. He's just... There's the screw loose in this guy's head.
Yeah,
I mean, I like it in the sense of, you know, he plays like a man, but fucking hell.
I thought he was Caps. He's actually Huni. I thought he was top lane Caps, but he was Huni.
I have to open some people's eyes up here as to why Whippo looked so phenomenal, particularly at Worlds last year, okay? And everything I'm about to say right now is verifiable. If you just go on OPGG right now, you can follow along with me and look up Whippo. I believe his original account is still called Whippo. This guy played basically 2 champions when he first hit Challenger in Season 5, and he expanded to a little bit more in Season 6, but for Season 5, 6, 7, he basically had the exact same 2 champions that were really popular. One was Garen. The other one was barely played at all by anybody. You would not see
Kled?
it until
No. Think about World's meta.
He was a Victor Galen 2-trick, and he got Victor almost every single fucking game at the World Championships. Nobody realized that this was like the only Victor top player in the fucking history of man.
Isn't it insane? By the way, Veteran, I just want to say, Veteran, this isn't lost on me, mate, because remember, Locodoco is the guy who didn't bother even looking up the OPGG of Power of Evil and noticing he was like a Syndra main.
No, we knew he played Syndra.
No, you didn't know shit.
We knew it.
And then
I'm going to dig up the scouting report. We fucking knew.
History, like, you know, their research, not that good. I'm just going to say it.
No, I promise you, every time we were stopped by a champion pick, we knew exactly what was coming, and we were confident we could beat it. We were informed and stupid. We were not uninformed and confident. We were informed and confident. We were informed that we were confident we could beat it.
Kickers in that team, but when he landed that flash gold card, I almost came, mate. That was fucking amazing. That was one of the best. Just because I could have imagined your face. I wish I had a play. I wish there was a face cam on you, like, what? No, because your whole world's... You're on home soil as well. Anyway, I'm digressing.
No, we weren't like, what the fuck? They're playing TF jungle. We're like, oh, what the fuck? These idiots play TF jungle. We'll just shit on them. And then we're getting to the game and we're like, what the fuck? He's actually playing TF jungle. Anyways, go ahead.
They baited you a bit with that as well, didn't they? Because I think Forg1ven's just crashed. But I actually always wanted to ask you about this. Did they bait you with this? Because they were hovering... I think they were hovering Xerath, and then they switched it to TF. Did they bait you into thinking that that was a TF mid by doing what they did there? Because they are only hovering mid laners there, and then they picked TF. So it looks like they were picking mids.
We were really good about scouting, and we knew what they were going to pull out. Just in our practice, we were stomping everyone with Azir and Nunu. This was when Nunu got buffed, and Azir was really strong. So we were like, oh, just play Azir and Nunu. And just fucking shit on everyone, and we're like, holy shit, we literally didn't drop a single game in practice, so we're like, okay, we'll just shit on everyone. But it's just NA was playing incredibly slow, and there weren't good enough teams to punish us for playing that style in our practice. And when we got to IEM, there were teams good enough to punish us for playing that style. So we're like, okay, our unbeatable Exodia strategy actually is not an unbeatable Exodia strategy.
So you're only scrimming NA teams at the time?
We were, and who else could be scrimmed? There was no.
I don't know. I don't remember the format of the tournament.
No,
I don't know if you guys like went over early and got to scrim up.
No, the tournament was held in IEM San Jose, and they flew the players in. Oh fuck, Dorian disconnected again.
It happens.
Okay, but the tournament was hosted in IEM San Jose, which is a North American city for people that don't know. And then people flew in like a few days before the tournament, so we didn't really have time to scrim international teams.
Am I back, by the way?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, you are back.
Okay.
We can see he's just finishing his sentence.
It's alright.
Anyways, let's go back to...
We digressed a bit.
Let's go back to Fnatic and Splice, and then let's move on.
Anyway, Bwipo was a Victor Garen 2 trick. He got Victor a shit ton last year. No one seemed to remember that he was that fucking Victor top player in solo queue. There's also a bit of ego, by the way. At least this seems to be most common with top laners. You remember how Schalke got Poppy non-stop last year as well in the later half of the season? Mm-hmm. Talking to other coaches there, they had the exact same thing that I did, wherein that if you said we're going to ban Poppy, even though the reason you'd want to ban Poppy against Schalke is because of how Poppy allowed them to control neutral objectives, which they weren't very good in the macro about. Yes, the top lane is like, but I can play versus Poppy. What are you talking about?
Why are you banning that shitty champion?
Yeah, I had to be super insistent on that on our team. Any other coach I talked to about this, their top laner was the exact same. So it might have just been that none of these guys wanted to bring up that Bwipo was like a Victor top one trick, because they were all like, Victor top, I can beat this guy's Victor top, who fucking cares? Like all this kind of thing. I could see that kind of thing happening. But yeah, he was able to be on his strongest champion for the majority of last year. This year you're seeing more like Bwipo's kind of level when he's not being permanently played around in a meta where it is viable to permanently play around your solo lanes. I do still think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong here, but I don't think Fnatic is like a super team. And Bwipo is one of the things that you could look at this series where it's kind of evident that this isn't really a super team, and it's one of the reasons why I was pushing for Young Buck to get coach of the split. Because even though this is a team that has had a lot of success, I don't think it's a team that's had a lot of success because they had 5 absolutely ridiculous players. I think Reckless is absolutely ridiculous, and the rest of the players are good. They definitely don't have any like horrible players on their team or anything like that, but it's not like Broxah, Hylissang, Bwipo are like really hard carrying like a bunch of games there or anything. Although Hylissang on Makan is a different beast.
You have to admit, at least they have a lot of continuity going over from more so than any other team. How long have everyone been playing together, especially the core of Reckless, Broxah, and Hylissang? Like that core has been together for such a long time. Where I can't see arguments for other people getting coach of the split due to this roster being already almost a done system and already almost a set system.
The coach of the split discussion is like a different thing entirely, but for me it comes down to that coach of the split, the coach becomes like coach of the gaps, you know, like the whole god of the gaps thing, where if there's something that you can't really explain, you just attribute it to the coach, you know. And even if you go by this logic, it's really easy to explain why OG are doing really well, you know, and it's really difficult to find a gap that you suddenly need to give Andre, stuff like this. Whereas with Fnatic, there are so many factors that I think that you could easily attribute to Youngbuck. Ultimately, I don't think that you can eye test the coach of the split, so I think the entire award is pointless and was always going to devolve into politics. But I do think that even though I agree with you that that 3-man core has stuck around for like a while and is like pretty strong with each other, we've had multiple G2 guys come on and testify to how insane Caps' communication was. We had Young Buck come on as well and talk about how they had to go around suddenly not having a voice in their mid jungle, which I can also tell you from experience is a really, really horrible thing. So I think that there was a lot there that had to be worked around, and I think they lost a lot just from losing Caps. Like, if you lose one of your main voices in the game, that can be huge, especially if your jungler isn't one of the other main voices in the game. And, you know, they bounced back. They found a way to make it work. The fact that Bwipo can play in this kind of playstyle is probably testament more to how good Reckless is rather than how good Whippo is, because Whippo has been giving significant advantages over to enemy tops, but luckily, top lane is not the meta right now. When the meta shifts back to top lane, we have to see how this team goes. I would be confident about them in MSI so long as the meta doesn't shift that way. If the meta does shift that way, then I'll still be confident because this team has evolved a lot over the course of one split. So I'm confident that they can evolve again.
Right, even though I'm usually not that interested in draft discussions, and I don't care what fans say, usually they aren't either. I mean, they only ever comment on like one pick that someone shouldn't have done, so they don't understand that concept. So, but I will ask this question, right? What the fuck was the draft in Game 4 of this series? Can you give me some insight here?
Go first.
Wait, let me pull this off. Let me pull this up. You're asking me to go first.
This was a lot of interesting / weird / confusing picks.
Game 4 was... Oh, wait. Was this Zobot? Wait.
This was where they had Veigar.
This was Veigar bot.
Yeah.
Oh, God. He can't play Mage's bot, by the way. I don't know why they kept insisting on putting combo on Mages.
The fucking Zoe game and the Veigar game. Oh, my... It's them getting too cute. Like... You're just being too cute. Just be who you are. Like, you don't need to get fancy. And it doesn't even, like, it wasn't even that great of a counter. It's that Veigar is supposed to counter Vayne by you put her in a cage and then she can't tumble out, so it fucks with her mobility. And then you're able to one-shot Vayne. Like, technically, that's how it's supposed to work. But Vayne can always buy QSS. Vayne can flash out of the cage. There's so many things you can do. And you're hemorrhaging your best player, and you're hemorrhaging what makes your team great in the late game to try to counter. And yeah, it was just so counterintuitive. I think it's people just being too cute.
I think it counters the multiple dive composition that Fnatic are going for as well, but I also agree with you that it doesn't like completely demolish the Vayne pick or something like this. Fnatic's adaptation for it to just go Sivir bot anyway was pretty hilarious, to be honest. At this point, I don't understand why Splice went for these kinds of picks, because I agree with you. It's not just that it's not where they've been strong. It's also that it's not where they need to develop. The problem is not Kobe's champion pool not being able to have mages. The problem is that they literally can't play outside of this really strange, we're giving up tempo for the sake of getting our carries insanely fed and then collapsing without tempo, and then hopefully we win the fight because we've scaled. Like, that's all that they can do. And this doesn't fix... Like, if they wanted to prove that they were a multifaceted team, going for picks like this is not the way that you do it.
But also, like, Kabe's not good on mages, and I think the reasoning for everything, why they played Zoe in Game 1 and why they played Veigar, from what I heard, is they exclusively scrim G2, because G2 and Fnatic don't scrim, and then G2 is playing OG, so the only team only team G2 can be scrimming is Splice. So just because Perks beats you with Mage Bottom doesn't mean Mage Bottom's OP. Like, realize you have different kind of tools, so it was super confusing for me.
I'm pretty sure Perks tweeted that Zobot is not even good in the meta right now. So I would be surprised if he was playing it, then he was probably just styling on them a little in scrims. I think overall though, like especially the Zoe pick, that put them into like a full-on poke composition when enemy was already about to run a Sivir comp and they just went hard engage on it, and then your windows are so fucking small. Even though you have the Tom Kench, you basically mitigate the strength of having the early Tom Kench pick. So their drafts were kind of questionable here. I don't like to dwell on drafts, so I'm being pretty brief of this. Just the TLDR is that if they're trying to show they're multifaceted, this is not how you convince any thinking person that you are multifaceted at all. You have to actually demonstrate a series of strong playstyles that isn't the one that you've been able to take victories with.
And they're showing that they're capable of losing in many different ways, but only able to win in one way.
Yes, that's true.
Well, here's the thing. That's one thing. That's one thing I'm torn on. So I want to get your take on that, because here's the thing, Veteran. If we flamed them for how they played the first series against SK, they did try to play like all that good shit that fucking Peter Dunn was saying in this series. Like, they tried to play like they weren't a team that was going to have to go to the late game. It's just they didn't execute a lot of it. Like, here's the problem. This is in a classic example of where I saw a lot of fans were saying that this was a fucking great series, you know, until Game 4 it was so good. And it's like the reason why I can't give them that credit and give them that validation is because I think Fnatic just fucked around too much in the series. And if anything, I think Fnatic looked like a bit stupid in some of the games. So, like, I don't really think this was that great a series. If anything, I think they showed that Splice couldn't do shit Like in these particular games when they were behind on some of these picks, nothing they could do with these mages.
Doran, like if I shot on you for like not being a nice person, I'm like, Doran, you have no idea how to be like a nice person. And then you attempted to be a nice person and you just came off really insulting. I would not give you credit. I would be like, yeah, you tried, but like you're not like really doing it. You're just doing it to do it. And that's what it feels like from fucking Slice. Like you're not multifaceted. Like you're not being creative. Like you're not showing me that you're capable. You're just showing me that you're incapable. You're deepening my understanding of your inability to play multiple styles. This does not convince me any way whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, what I really like, if we're going to look at the drafts, what I do really like is that Fnatic basically just picked hardcore scaling against them, knowing it's going to get to that point anyway, so you might as well just ensure we outscale. Like, it's not like they weren't trying to outscale them. There's an Azir, Jinx, Shen game. They're definitely looking to stop their collapse. They're definitely looking to scale. But Fnatic are just matching this with, like, a really early rotation Vayne, for example. Like, there's some form of hardcore late game insurance in every single one of Fnatic's compositions. And the final one, if you're going this kind of Veigar composition, you are still saying we're going for late game, but then they put the Vayne mid and then they take another hyperscaler out with the Sivir, and it's like, fine, by all means, go to late game. Like, they have no option at that point.
Also, another thing that I thought was really dumb was they're playing the wrong mages at the wrong times. Like that Zoe bottom and also the Veigar bot versus Vayne. I think the more classic one and the one that's more proven is Victor bottom versus Vayne. Like Victor at least lanes a lot better. Victor can clear a lot better. And Victor and teamfight isn't, oh, I put down a cage that you can flash out of or you can QSS out of and you're fucked. It's, I have an ultimate going on that's actively zoning out the Bane. I have a W that the Bane also has to watch out for. I also have the laser. There's so many things that I could be zoning the short range AD carry with that has to be in the middle of the team fight. And also, I'm a really great team fighter on my own. And I can fulfill kind of the role as the AD carry of hyper carrying a team fight as a Victor. Like, Victor's just much better. And Kingdom showed that. Like, Deft showed that. You should be playing Victor into Vayne. And they're like, no, we're creative. Like, we're going to do Veigar. So I just fucking hated all the creative
I actually
shit.
really do agree about Victor Bot. Like, I think that's a really underrated pick that you can do right now, and I think that's the best out of all the majors as well. I think that they were terrified of putting the Zoe into Syndra because they went super early rotation Zoe, and there are a lot of people who don't like the Syndra versus Zoe matchup because you basically can't burn your ultimate offensively in that matchup, or you will get one shot. It doesn't matter if you hit the Drowsy on that, the game is basically over in most scenarios. And as a result, the Zoe is going to be completely useless. But honestly, if I'm Splice, I'm thinking, well, no matter what my mid laner does, we never play around him anyway, so might as well. And then go for a better bot laner matchup, even if he's just going to be AFK wave clearing and the Syndra will scale. I want to make sure I can match that scaling with my bottom lane matchup anyway. Because honestly, guys, you never do anything with Humanoid, even when he is a monster ahead. This guy is alone.
Duncan, any thoughts?
No, I think we've said pretty much. I mean, I definitely echo what he just said at the end there. I do actually think Humanoid ended up being easily the best of those three rookie mids. And it's just unfortunate for him that he's not on the right sort of team where he could actually look like a star mid laner. He just looks like a good player, and they don't really play off him anyway. So what the fuck can you do? I mean, his jungler doesn't come and help him, so there's not a lot you can do on that.
If things were flipped and he was on Fnatic, do you think Fnatic looks better?
Yes,
I think they would be fucking amazing. Yeah, especially because also in that world, you probably wouldn't have so many games where Blippo does all this ridiculous shit that makes it look bad. Like that's the problem. Whippo is a player that lines up with my whole theory on real teamwork, which is that real teamwork is when you have a player who can use his strength to cover your weakness, and as a result, the team looks way stronger. But it's not like you don't have the weakness anymore. That's the flaw. That's the whole reason everyone gets tricked into all these all-pro selections where the dominant teams are getting all their players. What happens is that player who magically last year was way worse and now joins this team, he just gets his weakness covered, so he gets to look fucking amazing. He has no bad games. So I think that's just an aside anyway, but I've kind of my thought on that. So anyway, let's move on now to the much fabled Juggernaut match. Now, this was one, right, where I was one of the people in favour of this because I thought, first of all, you get to see 1 and 2 play no matter what. It doesn't matter if one of them gets eliminated. Like, say, Fnatic beats Origen now. It doesn't matter. We've still got to see that match at least. We've got to know what could have happened. And you have all the potential of, rematch in the finals. Maybe a team could change what they did the first. All these cool narratives, right? And game 1, you know what? I was thinking, right, yes, this is exactly, you know what? You know what? Give Riot some credit. They're the fucking thinkers. This is what we need in the LEC. This was a great game. Game 2 and 3 probably going to be amazing. Oh well, that's a shame. Well, at least that wasn't a real semi-final, eh, boys? At least the rest of the tournament still to go, because the first game was really good and then the rest was just fucking garbage.
I mean, I feel like if you lose in the manner that Origen lost the first game, that is obscene levels of tilt. I know they have a sports psychologist there, but I don't think there's a sports psychologist on the planet there that can convince you not to just lay down in the corner and cry if you lose with that kind of lead in a game that goes that fucking long. But with a composition like that, they had they had Kaiser, they had Zoe. What was their top? I think they outscaled in almost every single fucking regard, and they won the early game obscenely hard.
They had Urgot, Jarvan, Galio, Kaiser,
God.
Zoe.
Oh god, yes, but that's so free. If you get the 1-3-1 scenario going with that, versus it was Kalista Braum on the enemy team, right? If you get to play 1-3-1 versus that, it doesn't even matter if your side laners get outscaled at that point, because obviously enemy team had Ryze. It doesn't matter if the Ryze gets to outscale one of your side laners, because you just play 1-3-1, you get full advantage in the midsection, and then when you lean, if either Jarvan or Galio hits anything, Kaiser presses R. One of these champions gets in, the other two champions just press R, you collapse on them. So you are never essentially going to be in a one-on-one scenario in the side lane. Mm-hmm. The way that G2 got around this was that they played 3-1-1 against it, because they know they're going to lose out in the midsection no matter what. So they put Kalista Braum on side lane, hovered by the jungler for most of the game. They just stuck Caps mid on the Ryze, just farming every wave that was being shoved into him. Mm-hmm. And because Origen have had this addiction, I've written about this addiction that they have, and I've talked about it before with going for every single Drake. This is my one criticism of them. They're really good at setting up for it, but they think they need to go for every single Drake, even if they will give up map tempo for it. They're in a position, G2 are in a position...
Which is usually worth it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. If the Drake is something that you can snowball harder with, then yeah, it's worth. So say you're snowballing really hard and you can go for Triple Mountain. Yeah, by all means go for it. Say that you are playing a really strong poke comp like Ezreal, Jace, etc., and the Ocean is the Drake. By all means go for it. Then not being on the map and not permanently pressuring your opponent is very much worth it for the stats that you will get from this, right? Otherwise, if you're say that you're G2 in this scenario and you hear that enemy has got Cloud Drake, are you thinking, oh my god, we're fucked? Or are you thinking, oh great, I get to take the next two waves because they did this, they're resetting, and now I'm going to get some farm that they could have denied me beforehand, or something they could have punished me for beforehand. It's not really a punishment if you're going for stuff like this. But Origen have to go for stuff like this, and versus the 3-1-1 composition that G2 were rolling, or the setup I should say, that G2 were rolling, every time they did this, G2 would get a tower. They would get full tempo on the map because they are just in a position where they can do it from this point. And Origen kept giving them such huge map advantage with this that even with these kind of useless stats that they were getting from the Drake, they couldn't set up the map in their favor to get the team fight that they wanted, that they would definitely win with that composition. And eventually it was one mistake too many, and by the time that they won a fight around Baron, well, they've lost inhibitor bot, so now they can't do anything with this Baron, and G2 still have advantage on the map. This was how the whole game was going. This is how G2 were able to win, even though they had a less scaling composition in the first game. I thought that was really interesting. I couldn't talk about anything like this when it comes to Fnatic versus Splice or Splice versus SK, but the G2 OG series was clearly a cut above both other series. And I think after that, they kind of tilted a bit. You could still, you saw them be more willing to give up tempo on side lanes. The reason they lost game 2 is because Wander is so consistent about how he manages his wave in the side lane that every time that they wanted to overforce something, because they seemed to get a bit more erratic about it, Wander would just steamroll ahead until he was too dominant in any scenario to do anything with. And I fully agree with Papa Smithy's tweet that Wander is potentially the best player in the West. He definitely is making a big claim to it. Thorin just fucking crashed again, didn't he?
Oh, he did. Wait.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so I didn't get to watch this series, but I'm very surprised that people are touting Wonder to be better than Caps, because even without watching that series, I watched the other series. I've seen both Wonder play. I've seen both Caps play. Wonder has been really good, but there has been top laners playing at Wonder level from the West before, where for Caps, there has never been mid laners playing at Caps level. Never, ever, ever. That just has never, ever happened. And I think the gap between Caps
That's an
and the
interesting question.
next mid laner versus Wonder and the next top laner is much, much smaller. Think Wonder versus Cabochard.
Yeah, I think Wonder versus Cabochard, and I think if we're talking purely in terms of side laning, actually,
No, just overall as a top lane.
no, I think Wonder is overall better than Cabochard.
Alright, of course, no.
But
I agree Wonder is better than Cabo. What I'm saying is the gap between Wonder and Cabo, and compare that to
it's
gap
not as
between
big as the gap between Caps and the next best mid
Nukeduck
laner.
or Caps Bjergsen, Caps whoever you want to name. Like that gap and the gap between Wonder and Cabochard is much, much smaller. So
I don't think though that matters if you're talking about who potentially the best X in the West is. Like if you're talking about the best player in the West, then the fact that the best mid in the West is so much better than the second best mid in the West doesn't mean that he has a significant advantage over the best top in the West.
I think it matters in the sense. Okay. I think it matters in the sense like Caps is on a different planet. There is no player like Caps. And
compared to all other mids,
compared to all other players, what Caps does for you as a player versus...
That's a different argument. So that's a different argument.
Did I come back, by the way?
Yeah, you're back, Lauren.
Okay,
yeah, you're back.
Keep
We
going.
can hear you. We're just arguing about Wonder versus Caps.
I heard it all, but keep
because I
going.
said that I can see... Okay. Well, so my thing about Wonder is that I basically don't see him put a single foot wrong, and yet I do see Caps put foot wrong in lane all the time. Like his series, this series in particular versus Nukeduck, his early wave management was not actually that good. Like that was actually pretty significant in this series. I can't think of any sort of key criticism like this for Wonder, and the way that Wonder was playing out both his lane, the side lane later on, his wave management is better than any other top, mostly because every other top is currently going for this we are allowed to sack my own role to get tempo elsewhere, but when Origen did that versus Wonder in games 2 and 3, they got heavily punished for it because Wonder just plays the game out on such a consistent basis in his own way. Caps isn't even doing that just from a purely laning perspective right now. Like I wouldn't even say the gap between Caps and Nukeduck is actually so high right now. Like both of them weren't really playing the mid section that well this series, but both of them are phenomenal players, and I think Nukeduck can definitely take on Caps. I think the question of whether we've ever had a mid laner who has peaked at the level that Caps has peaked in Europe is actually a very, very interesting one, because I would wonder if we could take in like Jensen or Bjergsen at their potential peaks if we're talking about EU mids in particular. But that would be a discussion for another time. But I just think Wonder is playing at a better level than Caps is right now, and I don't think the gap between Caps and the next best mid has anything to do with the argument.
Because I didn't watch the series, so it's hard to comment because I didn't see like the last games that they played. But Wonder, I feel like, is a much more refined player than Caps and a much more well-developed player than Caps, because he's like had a development curve. Like he used to be on Splice, like he's improved, and he's getting better and better and better. And we're seeing kind of the start of the development for Caps, right? It's his second or third year in playing in a first tier league, and he's at this point. So I can see the argument being Wonder. Maybe he's better than Caps right now in terms of being an overall better player, and also there's the role difference. Like when you play mid, you have much more effect on the game, and just also playing style wise, Wonder is very consistent in terms of he wants to lane well, and then he wants to split push well, and then play well in team fight if he needs to, where Caps is way more blown open. So I think the argument is a little bit different, more so than just skill versus skill. But yeah, like when a player like Caps exists, it's hard to say like Wonder is the best Western player of all, or Wonder is the best Western player right now.
And they play in the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is why we're arguing if one of these two players could be considered better than the other, but neither of them can win MVP because they're both on the same team. So neither of them have the absolute value to their team that someone like Cabochard does, where he is heads and shoulders above the rest of the players on his team. Like that's
one thing. One thing I do want to say though is, since you addressed like the Caps versus Nukeduck part, like I'm with you on that one. Like if you actually look how Caps split overall in the split rather, Nukeduck should have been able to go up against them again. But here's the thing, okay? You ready for a miniature rant? So first of all, I already would not have picked Andre, who we've had on this show in the past, as the coach of the split. That's not flame. Not saying someone's not the best coach in the entire league is not flame. Like, he did an okay job. He did a good job, whatever. With the pieces he had, he did what I would hope he would be able to do. He did a good job. He got his team probably to a better position than expected, because remember, Fnatic, people thought would have been better than they were. But here's the problem, right? In this series right now, this is another fucking egghead who thinks that there's a global meta. So he takes one of his best players, Nukedoc, and he goes, sorry, Nukedoc, you are a fucking mule who plays Lissandra now. You do not play champions that can carry this game. And what do you know? Nothing happens in the fucking game. Really? Really, homie? Literally a player whose entire fucking gimmick is, I have a champion Ocean. It's like, you have a fucking drip of water. That's what the Andre Giotto goes, here you go, there's your drip of water. Go on, then they make an Ocean out of that. What was it? Come on, veteran. You're surely not fucking with these two Lissandra picks.
I mean, okay, so I don't think Lissandra is like a hot pick or anything like that, and I think Nukeduck can play well enough around the map to make it work. But I also think that it's just to go back to like the coach of the gaps thing, you are assuming there that Andre told Nukeduck to do all of this kind of stuff. Like at the very least, he signed off on it, sure. But I could see Nukeduck being the kind of guy to opt in for these picks, given his history. Like this was the guy who, when he was going up against Faker at Worlds, wanted to pull out the Swain versus the Ahri on it.
Listen, I get that, right? Okay, well, let me just say this one thing. If you are a coach and you go, "Oh, I didn't pick that. I'll let the player pick it," well, then you're a shit coach.
Yeah, but you have to decide one way or the other.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. I agree.
You have no way of knowing. You have no way of knowing. But
also,
like the most successful that Nukeduck's teams have been was Schalke last split when they got second, and Andre was coach of the split for that, and they were playing a completely different style where they basically just had top on like Poppy and bot on like Raw Mesriel perma, and Nukeduck was just on fucking Zed and all this shit permanently, right? Like that was the most successful split that they had. And I know they're kind of adapting to the fact that they don't have to do that here. We've had Alfari carry games. We've had Patrick carry plenty of games. Cold has been a phenomenal, one of the best junglers in the league, in my opinion. I think he's a top 3 jungler along with Jankos and Selfmade. And they don't need to play through Nukeduck here. So I wouldn't necessarily criticize him for when Nukeduck's going against the mid laner, where he probably is going to have the most competition possible, going for something like the Lissandra, where he can guarantee at least the enemy doesn't have hard lane prio for his other lanes that have been shown to carry, though bot lane didn't really get to do anything like that in this series. Mickey X and Perks, especially after the first game, it was just complete non-stop destruction in the bot lane there. They were permanently collapsing, and I still think Miffy was one of the best supports this split, but he wasn't exactly playing up to par there. Patrick got caught out a few times, so you didn't really have that, and I don't think that's on the fact that you've given Nukeduck Lissandra when he's playing against Caps.
Think it through.
Clear-cut carry.
So you guys have just made the case that Wonder's the best in Western player entirely, not even just best top player, right? Best Western player entirely. You already know Caps is a really good player, right? And then you picked Lissandra as your mid. So basically, bot lane has to carry the game.
Or you play really hard towards top side because you have Alfari and you don't buy into the fact that Wonder has been like, okay, we have to bear in mind that part of my reasoning for why Wonder could be the best Western player right now is based on his performance in this series. So you're not taking this series into account for it. So not taking this series into account for it, you can play really hard around your top side here and then put your bot lane on, for example, Varus Tarn, which is what they were doing.
When the fuck did they ever play around Alfari hard on this team?
Wait,
yeah.
One thing I do want to bring up is Grabs is actually in the chat, and he said they used Lissandra as a band-aid for the Galio ban. Clearly, they thought their die composition worked best. If that came from Andre or Nuke, that's not the question. And also, Thorn, like, I want to go back a little bit and talk about the coaching thing that you said, where you're a shit coach if you allow your player to pick Lissandra when it's not best for the team.
No.
Oh boy.
You're right there. If you let your player pick the wrong champion, you are a shit coach.
Well, I don't want to misquote you. What did you want to say regarding?
No, that's the point.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to end on that. If you just let your player pick Lissandra, which would be ridiculous. No, the point is you never lose responsibility as the coach. You have a choice. Either you pick it and you go, right, I picked it, or you go, or I let him pick it. Do you see the thing there? The player never picks a champion. Either you pick it or you let him pick it. That's the only scenario that can exist.
For some teams and for certain situations, I've also been in the situation. I was not in control of pick and ban, and I think it is realistic. Like some of the times, like as a coach, you have to be like, you know, this player feels really this way at this moment. There's nothing I can do about it. I can force him on a pick that he doesn't want to play, and it's going to make the team play worse, and it's going to make this player play worse. Like, just not as a coach, as someone that's, like, in the, like, position. Like, you know, like, you don't have control over it. Like, this player really wants to do this, and you're just going to let them do it. Like, some of the Huni teams, I'd imagine even some of the Faker teams, like sometimes you just have to let the player do what they want to do, and that is the best course of action. And I don't think that makes you a shitty coach. That makes you understand the situation and you know the situation you're in.
Well, you're not a shitty coach, but you're not the coach of the split.
Yeah,
you can't be the best coach if you are objectively not coaching.
Sure, I can agree
was
with
gonna
that.
say-
I don't think that tautology should really need to be stated.
But I also have to interject and say that Loco just said a really, really, really roundabout way of saying that he signs off on it. So
It's not signing
sure.
off. It's saying, what is it? I signed off on my boss doing something. I didn't sign off on my boss doing something. My boss did it, and I was there to witness it. Maybe
you know what, Loco?
Players
Do
and your
you know what,
boss.
son? Just as we couldn't know whether or not Giotto did this or whether Nukta did this, we don't know what Reginald does. So you know what? You did all that stuff. So you know what you signed off? That was your death warrant, son. That's why I'm not flaming you 4 years later on Reddit. It's not my fault.
Sure, that can be a thing, but I'm telling you, like, not always, like, we blame the
I
coach,
understand that,
but
mate.
realistically,
I'm
not
actually
the coach
making
has
a
problem.
point here about how it doesn't make sense to call someone the best coach when you have examples like this. Like, this isn't like a game decide. Like, didn't kill the whole series, but it didn't really give them the greatest chance, did they? Like, if you asked me where they were going to carry the game, I wouldn't have said through bot lane.
Okay.
I also would really question what you would have to do for the guy who's not actually involved in the day-to-day scrim activities to take the reins off of the head coach for this kind of thing. I really question.
We're
Be a
very
really good mid laner in season 2. Sorry, you meant in this. My bad. There we go.
Anyway, I didn't watch the series, so I can't talk that much on it. But okay.
I don't disagree with the pick. I don't disagree with the plan. And also, I don't think that playing super hard around Alfari means that you have to permanently gank him and dive him. They actually do give Alfari a lot of leeway in the early game. Not everything has to be a kill. He does get a lot of advantages.
about
And he
this
has
then?
carried on the Origen stuff.
Being as we've done the 4 series, let's set up then Fnatic versus Origen. So here's the thing. Even though Origen looked so lackluster in these second and third games in this series, as we've set up, it's not like Fnatic looked that dynamite against Splice at times. Like, they had definitely had some games where it looked a bit whack. Right? Veteran, I'll just go ahead and lead with this. I know there was all that crazy hype around Fnatic. They had the amazing win streak. They took care of Vitality fairly easily. I actually feel like the playoffs has killed a lot of that hype for me. Like, even though Origen looked not that great in these games, I expect them to actually handle Fnatic here. So where are you going on this one?
I think the problem is, and the reason why you'd be deflated off of watching the playoffs for Fnatic, is that it's really difficult to come into this series with the assumption that out of these two teams, Fnatic is the one that is going to change their playstyle. So basically, no matter what we're saying here, we're saying it under the banner of Fnatic are going to sack top, permanently play around bot side. Jungle top are going to fall a little bit behind, but they might be on some scaling shit, so it might be fine. And the whole game is going to be about how they play around Reckless. Nemesis is just going to play champions that either deny hard lane prior or can actually get it in their matchups. Like, this is how it's going to be for them. In this kind of framework, they need to be contesting Rek'Sai. If they don't contest Rek'Sai, I think that they are going to start having some significant problems after the first clear in the way that Origen will play out the series. I think if I'm Origen, I am looking at that top side, but I am looking at the mid section more than that. I think that if you can break this thing that they've been putting Nemesis on, where they've basically had him on shit like Zoe, shit like Silas, shit like Lissandra, stuff that will deny hard mid prior, if you can break this kind of thing around the mid section, then I think they can't play towards bot side as hard as they have. Because right now they're either 3v2 bot side or they're 4v3 bot side, and the 4 doesn't come from mid, it comes from top. Top is allowed to sack. Nemesis just holds you in place. If you can break that, I think you break Fnatic. If I'm Origen, I'm looking at that, and I believe in Origen to change their playstyle for this. I don't necessarily believe in Fnatic to change their playstyle for this.
I can agree if Origen has more tools and Fnatic has less tools. But my question is, why not just fucking gank Bwipo again and again and again and play through topside? This guy plays with so much disrespect that I think that would be my first plan of attack versus Fnatic. Like, check them for this shit. Like, for our series, Fnatic, if you're playing me, I am not allowing Bwipo to get away with this shit. I'm gonna punish it. Like, I'm at least gonna fucking try it in game 1 to punish you and make sure you're not running this bullshit on me.
Say you dive him, and then you start taking tower top. On respawn, Bwipo will teleport bot on top of the jungler, on top of your bot lane. He will just do that. He will lose like 4 CS top side, and it will work out. because first
if-
Drake is such a gigantic advantage.
Mhm.
This is what they've been doing the whole time. Like they wouldn't be the first team to try just permanently ganking Bwipo. The team that got dicked the hardest by Fnatic was trying to do that. So I don't really have particular faith in that. I do have particular faith in that if you fix this midsection problem. If you fix this midsection problem, then all of these bot lane advantages aren't necessarily guaranteed. I think that that's what you need to look for.
You don't have to live in top lane, but you can at least punish him enough where your top laner can handle Bwipo one-on-one and he's the stronger split pusher and put attention on bot. It's just, as a team, like, looking at Fnatic, why wouldn't you punish that? Like, why wouldn't you look at this? We're not letting them get away with this shit. If Bwipo plays like this, we're going to gank him, we're going to make sure our top lane gets ahead, and we'll make sure they don't get ahead on bottom.
Do you think he's gotten away with this in playoffs?
Yeah,
because I've seen him be fucking 05, fucking 06, like really dumb score lines in favor of the enemy top lane in playoffs, and it doesn't work.
I think there's
because they don't care.
I do agree there's games where he's been 04 and 06, and teams have been able to transition the lead from the top side to bot lane or top side to mid lane properly. But I do think like it is something that needs to be punished, and it is something that Fnatic is not changing up. So for it to go underlooked or for it to not being touched is absolutely wrong. I think OG as a team have so many ways to win, and they're the team with most variety, so they should definitely be looking at, top side, opening up top side and punishing Bwipo should be step one in all our game plan.
Okay, so I think we're gonna have to like agree to disagree on this point, because I'm saying that teams have done this. Teams have punished Bwipo, and you
Still
don't seem to think that they've punished him like enough. But
if they punished him and Fnatic still got away with it, then there's something fundamentally wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong about your top laner being 0-4 or 0-6 and you still being able to win.
Yeah, I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the top lane meta. I think that's the issue. And I think the only team that is willing to play the kinds of carries that you need to play to beat Fnatic at this game is G2, or at least playing so consistent a manner to win it is G2 right now. Because if Origen do this, they're going to do the Drake thing again. And when they do the Drake thing again, Reckless is going to come out with fucking 2-item Kai'Sa or some shit, and he's going to win the fight anyway. Because what top lane are you going to take that is going to make up for that kind of deficit bot side, given that you aren't just giving them golden resources on Reckless, but you're also giving them the stats of the first Drake? Probably
something like Irelia rides, something like that takes over games when they get ahead.
Which only Wonder has done. Like, actually, I think Alphari has played Wise at least once, but I don't think that that's going to like offset the power of the AD carry right now. And even if they do, that's 2 bans that you need. Like after the Jace game, Fnatic immediately just banned Jace. Like they know that they need to secure their top side in this particular regard, and they will just adapt to that in turn. I don't think that there is enough of a champion pool top side where you're going to find champions that will offset what you give up in the bot side when you go permanently for Bwipo. And Bwipo has enough champions that will scale enough to be useful the later the game goes, and Reckless will buy him that time. So you're not even going to get him out the game. Is China just like targeting foreign or something? I thought he said this shit about Poland, but not China.
He's on a VPN. What do you think about the kill pick in general?
About the Kale pick in general?
Yeah, no one plays Kale in NA. And in EU, it's something that's banned in first rotation. So
am I back now, by the way?
Yeah, you're back.
Right, okay.
It's both regions.
I heard all that, don't worry.
Did you see the Fnatic Vitality series?
Yeah, I saw Fnatic Vitality.
Yeah, so you saw how the Kale pick happened when they actually let it.
Yeah.
There are just so many champions that have both scaling potential and strong first item spikes or strong first clears. If we look at Karthus, for example, Karthus finishes his first clear at 303, 304, and then is back on the map, full clear of his jungle, by the way, and then is back on the map at the same time where enemy jungle is going to be clearing either his wolves or his Krugs, one of these two, and can immediately contest that. But he's a champion that scales ridiculously well into the late game. So if you are going for like these kinds of scaling compositions, you're at an advantage right now. Kel herself is a her, right? Kel herself is not super effective in the early game, but there are so many champions right now that can get you to that breaking point. That teams like Splicer in our top 4, that Kel will become useful eventually. And also, if you just RNG one skill point, then you're only waiting for level 15 and not level 16. And the current AD on hit build is like absolutely ridiculous on her. So I think it's a worth pick. It's not worth in the way that for everyone who's been following EU Masters, Mad Lions have picked it, where they just pick permanently scaling lanes along with it. You do need buff buffer in other areas, but that buffer is so easy to get. Is my point, even if you are going for scaling composition. So I think the Kel pick is quite good right now.
Is it better mid? Because I thought initially it was supposed to be a top laner, but I've only seen it mid, other than like Lorlo playing at top in NA.
Yeah, because of the huge range disadvantage you have right now versus the jungle picks that have pretty good tempo right now. She's just a lot safer to play in the mid lane than she is in the top lane. I think it's really abusable top. That's a pick where if Whippo picked it, I think you could just abuse him on it. I think you can deny him really, really hard on it, but you can't really achieve the same thing in mid. So I believe that's a logic for it. I haven't actually spoken to other players about this yet, and the Kel pick's something I have to look more into, but I do think we're just going to see it banned a lot anyway.
Oh.
Surely this is a series where Nukeduck can be the difference maker.
Yeah, I would say so. That's why I think Origen will be looking at that. I think Origen will be looking to actually finally break this midsection hole that they have been having on almost a pure like pick basis, but also because Nemesis hasn't faced someone like that yet. Like, I do think Humanoid is someone who can challenge Nemesis, but I also think Xerxes doesn't do anything around mid lane, so that's a problem there. But Origen, on the other hand, this is a team where they can definitely do something around mid lane, and if you break that midsection, you could potentially just match them bot. I might even look into matching them bot in that scenario. And if you do that, I think Fnatic will start getting their first consistent losses.
Makes sense. What do you think, Loco? Who do you have winning this one?
Gonna be hard. I kind of want to go Origen because I feel like Fnatic is a very normie choice. Like, everyone just wants Fnatic to win.
Normie choice.
Yeah. Dude, when I was watching the Splice Vitality game, or Splice Fnatic game, they had the chart of the fans think are going to win. Fnatic had over 50%. Between 4 teams, Fnatic, Splice, G2, and Origen.
The whole league, you mean? Here.
Yeah, of the whole league.
Match, right.
They said Fnatic has over, like, fans voted that I think Fnatic had like 56%.
I mean, to be fair, Loco, 13-year-old girls aren't usually the best analysts in League of Legends.
It's true.
Saying. Anyway.
I feel like Veteran's great. But anyways, it's just Fnatic's such a normie choice.
That one didn't land. Just let that go, Veteran. We have a house rule here. When he does a shit joke, you just pretend it didn't happen. So keep going, Loco.
Okay.
He's sort of learning to do humor, you know.
Okay. Thanks, Doran. Thanks for making it awkward. Thank you. But
yeah, I made it awkward. That shit fucking joke just went out of the window to no one. Yeah, keep going. Anyway,
thank you for making it awkward for the second time.
So you don't want to pick Fnatic, right?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to pick Fnatic. I'm gonna pick OG. I feel like if I pick Fnatic, then I'm the random NA fan that doesn't watch EU and that's just cheering for Fnatic. So I'm gonna.
God forbid. God forbid that would ever be.
I think there's
you.
that Origen could win the game. I don't think you can be picking either team in this particular scenario. I think there's obvious routes by which Origen could win, but I am picking Fnatic because I'm sticking with my December predictions, where outside of the top 4, they got 100% correct, by the way, if you go back and check. I also said that it will come down to G2 versus Fnatic, and that I think Fnatic will win. So I have to say Fnatic just to be consistent with that.
Wait, let's talk about that one. If you think Fnatic makes final, you think they'll beat G2?
That was what I said in December, yes, and I still think so, yes.
Really?
Wait a minute. The fact you said it in December is irrelevant, mate. Like, I have a rule I do in
Counter-Strike,
where even if I pick someone at the beginning of the tournament or the beginning of the match, if, like, you know, something, so in Counter-Strike we don't have a draft, but we do have a map draft. If they pick the wrong maps, obviously I pick the other team, don't I? I don't just go, well, I'm going to stick with that, because here's the thing, Veteran, you are right. As an analyst, you can't win with the fans if you change, because all they will do, by the way, I'll tell you right now, is pick the one that you got wrong.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that you swapped. But as an analyst, that alone is a garbage reason to do it. So if you think they will still win now, that's a totally legit reason to do it. So why give us, since they haven't even won this series yet, this would be a great time to give us a couple of reasons. Why would Fnatic beat G2?
If they beat Origen, then this means that they have at least adapted in some way for the opponent that they are about to play. And they did do that versus Splice. And no team has evolved as fast as Fnatic have. I'm not saying that if you put the Fnatic that played against Splice versus the G2 that played against Origen that they would win. I'm saying that if there is one team in Europe that has shown that they can become that team that would beat G2, it is basically just Fnatic right now.
Dude, you can show variety. Like, you can show that you can win in multiple styles and you can show variety, but it doesn't show depth. Like, to beat G2, like, you're laning versus Wunder and Caps like in contention for best Western players at the moment in time. Like, just because you show me variety doesn't mean, like, it doesn't give me confidence that you have the laning capabilities or you have the capabilities to beat
But
G2.
it's not variety for the sake of variety, which is what Splice. Sorry about this. Which is what Splice did.
Mm-hmm.
It's targeted plans. They are adapting for the specific teams that they are playing against.
Yeah, but you
that
can have
is actually.
You can give me
you
a
can have
target. You can give me a targeted plan on how to kill a cat, how to kill a dog, but doesn't mean that you know how to kill a fucking like an elephant. Just because you showed me how to.
Do you think G2 beat Origen game 1? Do you think G2 beat Origen game 1 just because they are better laners? Because they were monster far behind in that game. They were monster far behind and they won because they understood, or maybe they didn't understand it. Maybe they incidentally.
To be fair, he did say he didn't watch that.
That's what
he can't answer that.
Yeah,
I can't answer that.
Okay, well then shut the fuck up.
Wait,
But they targeted Origen's. They actually targeted Origen's actual big weakness, and if G2 can do that, Fnatic can definitely do that. Because Lord knows G2 haven't been the most adaptable team for the duration of the split. But there's a clear thing there that you can fucking bore through and beat them on. So you can definitely beat Origen with this. There are similar things that you can beat G2 with. And if Fnatic figure those out, they can definitely win against them.
But G2 is so much of a stronger team than Origen. G2 is so much more pressure and like G2's up in your face all the fucking time. I think it's a completely different argument to beat G2 than it is to beat Origen. Just because you've shown that you can beat Origen, you can beat Splice by countering what they do and finding their weakness. Like, how the fuck can you beat G2 that way?
You can't beat G2 the same way that you would beat Origen, though.
Yeah.
The way that you would beat G2 would be that you have to target their jungler in the early phases. In my opinion, this is the way that G2 have actually lost their games. And G2 are not as good at rotations in mid to late game as Origen have. This is why they lost to Splice, because they gave Splice a window in rotations. You give Splice a window in rotations, they'll dick you for that, because Splice do bad rotations for a living. So they'll be first on it. And these are identifiable characteristics. I just even told them some of the VODs that they should go and look at that you can target G2 with. And I think Fnatic can adapt to that. Now, that is a leap of faith. Now, that aspect where I'm saying that they can adapt to that is a leap of faith, but it's a leap of faith on the basis that they have actually performed similar style changes, similar champion changes, actual targeted ones. So
that jump is so big though, like being able to do it versus OG and to do it versus Fnatic, or to do it versus G2. You don't think that jump is huge? Like, hey, we adapted and we were able to beat
I mean,
OG.
I don't buy into the super team fallacy, so no, which is why I was arguing with you permanently about Misfits last time and ended up being right about that.
Oh,
You had to get that in somehow, even though they're not even in the playoffs. Like, I knew it was
you did not tell me that Alphari would be fucking Garbo Surge would have the worst split in his life.
I'm
you
sorry,
did not
what?
put that.
Sorry, what? You looked at that? Wait,
did.
what? You mean...
You told me that Alphari would be fucking garbage, this split.
I told you that Alphari would be garbage?
Not Alphari, not Alphari, my bad. Maxlor. You did not tell me you did not tell me Maxlor
Yes, I
would be
did.
garbage.
I told you that Maxlor and Gorilla do not know how to engage, and adding Gorilla does not suddenly make it so that Maxlor knows how to engage. I said Maxlor will give you the game after the first 15 minutes, because that is what we did versus them. By picking away the Shen, Maxlor's engages turn to ints. That is exactly what I have said for over 2 years now about that team.
Sure, I mean,
the Gorilla pickup doesn't change that, and I said that on the last Listen Loco, and everyone else can go and check that if they want.
I'm 100% sure that you made those points, and I'm not going to argue that you made...
I even said that the only way that they were going to end up making up for this was if SOAS takes Jarvan or Gnar, and 3 out of 4 of their wins, 2 of them, when they made their comebacks, 2 of them were on Jarvan, and 1 of them was on Silas, who wasn't even in the game, running over Jarvan ultimate for the entire fucking time. And the only outlier was an Urgot, which was a full shields composition against Carthage, which is a very innovative one that I congratulated the same on when he came on the show. When he came on the show and confirmed that SOAS was their only point of engage, that Gorilla and Maxwell don't know how to find these opportunities, and that is how they have had to play it out. So I was completely correct on every point on that.
No, you're correct on that, but no one could have guessed Maxlor. It's not even Maxlor not being able to engage. It's Maxlor in the first 15 minutes having no idea how to pass and having no idea how to 2v2 or 3v3 with anyone. That was a bigger problem than any of their engaged problems. Like, they had no early game, and they basically did not have a jungler.
These guys had the best early game statistically by a significant margin in the league. So I don't know what you're talking
advantage,
about.
I think it was goal differential.
Yeah, significant goal advantage. These guys were playing with ridiculous leads. The early game was not the part where they had problems.
You don't think Maxlor being able to not find any kind of
I don't think Maxlor can path that effectively. I don't think he can.
Oh, then we're on the same point. Like them having not any of.
But that's not why they were losing.
Why do you think they were losing?
They were losing because they can't find engage opportunities in the mid to late game because they don't have any singular player that can do that for them, except for Soaz on a specific champion.
I think that is a part of.
This team just rolled over and died. This team just rolled over and died no matter what significant lead they had. They just ran to fucking Baron permanently. That's all they knew how to do.
Loco, here's the thing, mate. Listen, if you actually had a leg to stand on this one, I'd defend you. I wouldn't just gang up with the guest just because it's funny and wreck you. I do that just on the side, right? So in terms of legit points, I do try to be fair, right? But I will say this. You can't go with the angle of like, yeah, but veteran, you never said in game 3 that actually like they'd lose the blue buff early and then like actually the top gank wouldn't work. Like he did pretty much fucking nail a lot of the real key points.
I want to give.
Bear in mind we haven't seen the games played, you know.
I want to give
good.
I want to give credit to where veteran is, right? Like in terms of them not knowing how to engage and Misfits looking lost as a team. But even if let's say for some reason like in the middle of the game you gave them Malphite, right? Like game starts at 15 minutes or game starts at 20 minutes and they get to have Malphite on Maxlor or Malphite on Gorilla or for some they drank magic potions and they knew how to engage. This team would still have problems. Like
this team would have won.
No,
this team would be a top
I don't know, Loco. Here's the thing, listen, Loco. I'm not actually like an expert about League of Legends, but I will say this. The part that tilts me the most about people's analysis of Misfits this split is the idea that like most of the players didn't play well. Like that's the part I can't handle. Like, why do you think they had the good goal differential early in the game? Because what's mad is most of the players actually were pretty decent players, and some of them good players, like you said. I've been a pretty good player, right? So as if he got the right picks, could be a good player. Problem is, in this scenario, like, why could they never parlay being a good player into winning the game?
Because they had no shot calling, they had no decision making. Like they went to
probably
Baron.
They
went to Baron. They went to Baron. Wait, their shot calling was let's start Baron with like having. They know. We have vision on Baron. Like they're like, let's start Baron. It's not, hey guys, we need to engage right now, and then they fumble to engage.
What does that have to do with Maxwell's early pathing?
No, it has to do with they're still gonna lose even if they have engaged tools because their decision making was so shitty and they're
it's not that they don't draft it's not, but that's what I've been saying. I've been saying that it's not that they don't draft engage tools, it's that only one player on that team knows how to engage, and it was predictable that Gorilla doesn't know how to do it. It was obvious that Maxwell didn't know how to do it because he's never known how to do it, and it was an abusable point of them for years. Like the only person who has a history of being able to carry in those circumstances was Soaz on 2 specific champions, and it's literally exactly how they ended up winning. Then you said, well, do you agree that Maxwell's early pathing was bad? And it's like, yeah, but that's not the problem with that team. They had significant early leads, and now you're saying, well, you know, their problem is all their shot calling, which is exactly what I'm saying.
No, their problem is their shot calling. No, I'm like, wait,
you put the cart before the horse, Loco. If you have no engage tools, even when you have leads, what fucking decisions can you make? This isn't LCS, Loco. They can't just be golden guardians and wait till the end of the fucking game.
They've given Gorilla Alistair, they have given Maxwell Zach, they have given these guys significant engagement.
Let's do another one. Let's say they drank magic potions that taught Gorilla and Maxlor. Like they're the same player as this, but they knew how to engage. They would still fucking lose games because of their decision making. It's not that they're engaged.
They would be in the playoffs at least. They would be in the playoffs at least. Come on.
They would be a top 3 team. Because
they would be a top 3 team if they drunk magic potion.
You know what Foreign was saying earlier? About how the good way to put teams together is not this whole super team thing. It's to like find players that make up for the weaknesses.
Yeah, and they function together well,
right? Yeah, and then you yourself just said, Surz is a phenomenal laner, Forg1ven's is a phenomenal laner. Hans Gorilla are actually really good laners. Like they at least know how not to die. Gorilla's made a fucking career out of this. that makes up for Maxlaw's early flaw, where yes, he does lag behind other junglers in the early game right now. That does make up. It's more than made up for it. If you gave Maxlaw and Gorilla magic potions where they suddenly knew how to use engage tools like fucking Zach Alistair to close out games where they have phenomenal early game leads, yes, this team would be a top 3 team right now. They may even be in contention, but they are not those players. Bringing on Gorilla did not solve the problem of Maxlaw. I think keeping Maxlaw there, I question that decision itself. So is the only person there who's been in a similar scenario before, and that's why I singled him out. It's gone exactly that way.
So I think their core problem is not the ability to engage, or not like, hey, they're in a situation where they need to engage and they fumble and they engage. It's their decision making going into mid and late game regarding what their team needs to be doing. It's not, okay, they set up an engage and then they fumble the engage that they lost. It's they have no idea what to be doing mid and late game. The enemy team's taking Baron. How should we check into this? They have no idea how to do it. We have a lead. Okay, we need to set up a situation where they're checking into us, or we need to set up a situation where we're diving or we're forcing the team fight. They don't do it. Like, they're never in a position to.
While they're finding all these situations, though, there are multiple windows that any player like Soaz would have seen and would have engaged upon that they have missed. That is the big problem with them right now.
No, you're fine, Doran. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I want to ask you a question, though, Loco. Along those lines, right? Tell me this. If you're a team who didn't have the engage tools, like you say, right? And in this particular scenario, you're saying the shot calling is lacking, right? Well, another thing every fucking coach tells in every interview is, like, you know, how shot calling is a team effort, and, you know, like, we work on things in practice, and, you know, everyone has to have a say in it, and everyone can, you know, people are learning to be shot callers. I love all this shit, like learning to be shot callers. That's like saying, like, I'm learning to be smart tomorrow. Are we going to do that? Don't know. Fucking going to give 2 + 2 = what? Sorry, 4. Yeah, my bad. Like, I don't know how you can learn to be smart. So this is the question, right? I assume you don't think Soaz is a stupid player. I assume you don't think Gorilla's a stupid player. I assume you think Maxlaw has some brains in his head, right? How can none of these players combined come up with anything decent in terms of shot calling?
I think that's a fucking magic. That's fucking mystery. That's fucking, what is it? Like Bermuda Triangle shit.
I don't claim to have the answer for that. Yeah. It's a weird one.
It doesn't matter anyway, because me and Loco kind of agree from what he said, even though we're coming at it from different ways. Because I do agree with you that the shot calling is a problem. I do think that it wouldn't necessarily be an issue if they had someone who saw all these windows. But at least we both agree that Maxlaw and Gorilla are like the issues with this team in that case. Because we had Hussein on, and guess who does the shot calling for that team and all of their lane setups? It's Gorilla. So we at least are attacking the exact same players, right?
Yeah, I also think Hansama. If I had to attack 2 players, I would put Hansama and Maxlor. Gorilla would be my third. Shot calling is a problem.
It's a problem. Then it's Gorilla, no?
Yeah. If ADC just right clicks, mate.
If Gorilla is part of, if a Gorilla is a huge part of shot calling, then Gorilla would jump up on my who to kill him. Then Gorilla would jump up my.
He calls out the map setups.
Then Gorilla would jump up on my list. Then Gorilla would jump up on my list.
So Maxlor and Gorilla, yes?
Yeah. If Gorilla is one of the primary shot callers, then Gorilla jumps up on my list.
That's good. There you go. We're at least in agreement on that, because I wanted to find some sort of common ground instead of just arguing, which is what we've done most of the show.
Anyway, so basically, you're going to pick Origen overall, Loco?
Yeah, I'll pick.
Because he's already said he's picking Fnatic.
Yeah, I cannot pick Fnatic. I want to see Fnatic crash him, bro.
My problem with this one is, like, I do think Origen is a better team overall. Like, even though they looked like shit in those second and third games against G2, like, that's just, like, I'll just go ahead and give everyone the spoiler. Like, at no point in time have I actually thought G2 was going to lose this split. Like, I think their whole, like, downfall is fake as fuck anyway. They had a couple of games they lost, and then they put in Promiscue and just obviously went like, who gives a fuck, and just lost the 2 games. That doesn't count. That's not like when Team Liquid with their real lineup lost games. That's not like Griffin with their real lineup losing games. That was like 2 giveaway games. So I don't even feel personally like G2's legitimately lost that many games. So they're not going to lose a series. They've got way too many good players. Doesn't matter which of these 2 teams win. They're not going to fucking beat G2 in the final. So anyway, back to this particular matchup. Origen is the better team overall. I think Nuke Duck will be much better than Nemesis. I don't blame Nemesis. He's a fucking rookie. But he hasn't had to go up against many strong players so far in the playoffs. Then you go and look. The one X factor I'll give Fnatic is, like, if they can get the team fights, obviously Reckless could be the best player in the team fight. Yeah, he's a fucking really sick player, and he's actually done pretty well once he got their shit together again this split. Just I don't think they'll even be in that position. Like, I don't think he can do that against Origen. And I do have faith that Origen actually will be able to be much, much better at adapting to what Fnatic does.
So there's some juicy topics that I really, really want to hit on. I know Dorian has a flight to catch, so
it's like, we can do them.
The Forgiven coming in for summer, Trick coming into Schalke, and some of LS's opinions on Europe. Like, I think these are so juicy that I want to talk about them. Let's go with the Forgiven one.
LS has. Oh, you want me to flame LS on here?
I don't want you to flame LS. I want to talk.
Huge,
I want to talk about some of the things that LS has said, and also I feel comfortable about bringing up the LS topics because he's actually going to be show on the Thursday, so I want to ask him about it too. But I also want to get European opinions on it. Anyways, let's start with the Forgiven one. What do you guys think of? Oh my! Someone posted a video about Forgiven being in Challenger and why he's good. And then while I appreciated the video, I would have appreciated a lot more clips about his recent play because he's showing clips from the World's run, and I'm like, if that's why Forgiven should play, then I can show you clips of Reignover from the same kind of era, and then I can't make the argument that Reignover should play in LCS because he was good years ago. So why are you making the argument Forgiven should play in LEC? Because there is a good argument that he should play in LEC. If he can hit Challenger again, if he can be top 10, there is a good argument. You're just going away from the good argument.
Hit Challenger in 2 weeks as well, by the way, from nothing. From literally zero to, here's the thing, I will say, and I will not allow this to go without being said, he definitely didn't spend the last 2 years not playing League of Legends. I'm not just talking about EU Masters. He played it occasionally. You could see him play it from time to time, but essentially as a pro player, going from nothing to right at near the top of Challenger again, that's pretty legit.
So I have to say that, I haven't actually watched Forgiven's solo queue games in the current iteration, but the fact that he hit top 10 in this amount of time isn't the really impressive thing for me. It's the amount of games that he has played in this amount of time. That should signal to anybody that is looking for an LCS ready AD carry that this guy is
90 games in the last 7 days, 97 games or something, I think it was.
Yeah. I actually think that's in the last 5 days. He's playing legit 13 to 14 games a day. Anybody who is looking for a dedicated AD carry and who is worried about whether or not Forgiven is the kind of guy who is talented but lazy, can look at this and see that this is a guy that clearly is going to put the effort in to get back at the level that we all know that Forgiven can be at. Outside of that, talking about some sort of intangibles, for me, Forgiven was the guy that we brought back on for the World Championships, and it was after a week, it was the Forgiven that we always knew. So I can say from experience that Forgiven is not a guy who is going to suffer from the amount of time that he has spent away from the game, nor ever should anyone consider that he would be. And even if he would consider that he would be, the sheer volume of games that he's been playing shows he's dedicated to getting back to that level. So I think there's every reason to take him on board.
One thing hilarious about the Forgiven thing is a lot of retired players are coming out of retirement to play with Forgiven. They're like, oh, we used to be friends, so why don't we all make an unretired team? Jesse's and Amazing, they're all hey, Forgiven, what up, dude? I heard you're coming out of retirement. Me too, dog. Why don't we all make a team? Forgiven must be fucking good if other players unretiring to play with him, just to play with him. I feel like
yes, it's just that, because Jess's was I will go back to support if I play with Forgiven. But otherwise, I will stay with Mystics as a coach, and I'm fully dedicated to all of that. And I understand that Forgiven might want to play with other supports. So this doesn't put Forgiven with me. It just puts me with Forgiven. Just letting you guys know. He has supports cucking themselves just to play with him already. It's absolutely insane. But that's it's a well-earned reputation, and it's a very unique one. He is a very unique talent in this regard. There are very few players who I have absolute confidence on a pure quote-unquote talent level alone, which will trigger Weldon like fuck. And Forgiven is definitely one of them, though. His brain is just a sponge that absorbs games really, really.
Dorian, go ahead. I'm sure. I know you're dying to talk on this.
I'm not going to go on a huge rap. I'll just say this. This also just shows how utterly worthless the opinions of Reddit generally is, because he didn't even have to play a game and they already 180'd on what they've been saying for the last year and a half, which is why do you keep bringing up that Forgiven guy? He wasn't even ever that good. He was just overhyped and all the rest of it. Forgiven is near the top of the class of evergreen players who, as long as they want to, they can be very good players. Like, I don't know if that means he will be the best, but if he wants to, as in he puts in the hours and he's on the LEC team, he can be a top 3 AD carry in LEC. Like, that is just something that I've seen it happen many, many times. He's already taken off splits multiple times in his career and come back to great success. He looks like he's going to do it again. Doesn't surprise me. To tie into what Veteran says there, probably the most interesting thing about Forgiven is the only flaw he has as a player is his temperament and who he is as a person. That is the only flaw, because normally you can say about AD carries like, oh yeah, the skill's really good, or like, you know, they're really good in lane but not in team fights. Oh, they're really good in team fights but not as good in lane. He is good in all facets of being an AD carry, except that he's a bit of an arsehole sometimes as a teammate, or a bit. I wouldn't even say that as much. It's more like that's variable. He's more like he can be stubborn as a teammate.
Yeah.
So as an individual player, put it this way: if in the game everyone played without any comms whatsoever, we all just had to somehow play and know what our teammates do, he would be the best. He would be the best.
He would.
Exactly. He would be him and Uzi or something would be the best fucking AD carries in the world, mate.
Can I contest you on the champion pool thing though? Like, other than his temperament, isn't champion pool also something that can be?
That's the stubbornness part. Like, think about this, Loco.
Whoa.
Like, think about Forgiven's style of play. Are you telling me you think in Season 5, this guy couldn't have just dumpstered people on Callista? He refused to play it. And for no good reason.
Season 6. He played it in Season 6 on H2k.
We can Go ahead, Baron. Sorry.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
Okay, well, okay. No, what I want to say is that even if people will point to him having champ pool issues, there isn't really a meta champion that he can't play, and there isn't a way that you can ban him out, because God knows teams have tried to ban out Forgiven, and then eventually they realize they just have to ban out, N-rated, and then it's all Gucci. But like, teams can't really, like, teams have tried to ban out Forgiven and then first pick an AD, and he's always gotten something that he can be comfortable on. So I really don't think this champ pool issue is like a proper issue. Also, if Callista is the real sticking point, then, well, that shit's in the fucking dumpster fire now anyway. So I don't think, like, even when she is meta, she is not even, like, the best pick in the game or anything like that right now. I don't think there's a single champion in the current meta that he can't play. I'd be interested to see his Xayah, though, because I haven't actually seen his Xayah before.
All right, let me add another angle to it. So back when Forgiven played, bot lane was purely AD carries. Now bot lane isn't purely AD carries, and there is actual benefits to playing non-AD carries. Is Forgiven great on those champions?
I've never seen him play those champs.
Sorry, Dorian.
Yeah, but you don't need to play them though.
Currently, right now, you don't need to. There are some metas where it is. I would almost say you need to play those. Right now, it isn't, but there are, like, depending on what changes Riot does.
This is a good point. I do agree with that point. I haven't seen him play mages. I have never seen him play mages. And when his old off roller was Jarvan 4, he just played Jarvan 4 in like all lanes when he was off. So that is actually a question that's kind of up in the air. I wouldn't really take it into account if I'm looking to hire Forgiven right now, though, because the sheer amount of hours that he's putting in, I would believe that he would be willing to put in the hours to learn mage champions if you absolutely had to pick them and they were objectively the best pick. I would believe in him to adapt to that meta. This guy absorbs games like a sponge, like I said. So
I mean, you can be like a ruler player. You can be like ruler. You can be like Uzi. You can be like double lift and be like, I'm not touching that shit. I am an AD carry player. But also, there's another depth to it where you can be Viper instead, where, I can play everything. I can be the Vladimir player, I can be the Irelia player, the Yasuo player, I'll play everything.
I mean, give him Tarzan, we'll fucking start talking, shall we?
Sure. You don't need Tarzan to play those champions. I'm saying it gives you another level. It gives you another depth as a player to be able to play those champions. You can get away with it. Like, the best AD carry players like Double Lift, like Uzi, Ruler, like, they gotten away with it. But I mean, even players like Def, when they add Victor to their pool, like, there's another depth, and it gives your team another way to win.
I'd also echo what Veteran said there, because I think it is a significant point to make. Is like, even if you think, we got him off all the meta champions, well, if any of his favorite champions that aren't in the meta are still in the bot lane, so let's say Tristana wasn't in the meta, obviously he would just play that because he's going to know the matchup. Like, that's another thing about evergreen players, is they tend to have champions that, like, they just know every matchup of, even when it's not in the meta.
Yeah. I think we covered enough.
The biggest question for me, and the one part I would throw out at the end of this topic, is just whether he can get onto a good team, because that's another area, right, where Reddit just needs to shut the fuck up. Every Reddit thread goes like this. Like, back me up if you've seen this. Every time Reddit discusses a player, right, they act as though the current standings is like an objective, like, metric for every player's level in that team. So what they do is they go, right, well, you know, obviously no one would ever be able to replace Whipple because Fnatic was number 1 last season, and so how could you ever replace him because he was number... It's like, first of all, it doesn't work that way. Secondly, you don't recruit based on like just the last few games. You recruit based on what you're trying to do for the future and what you think the team synergy will be. And then thirdly, behind the scenes, players and coaches put a lot more stock in what they see in scrims and the rep of a player and like who they're like, for example, other players in the team saying, I want to play this person, than they do the fucking standings. So that's one of the things actually that Forgiven is, believe it or not, mildly underrated, is there are so many people who behind the scenes in a Twitter DM have, I've got like fucking paragraphs like this, they're telling me about how sick Forgiven is. They just don't want to say it in person. Like maybe he flamed them. Maybe they just think, well, what's the fucking point in, if everyone's against him this week, what's the point in me being the guy who comes out in favor of him? Like the guy's rep in terms of the players is actually higher than the public. That's actually why, bizarrely, he ends up being underrated as a player. Like, I get that he didn't win any championships, but as I always tie into this example, this is exactly the same stupid shit as the people who used to, like, just spam Double Lift's trophy case and think they were making some sort of great point, like, where's all the championships? And then what happened? Like, he instantly just was made every fucking final, won all the championships. Like, that's the kind of clown shit that will happen to these guys if somehow he ends up on a good team.
Any chance do you think he goes to NA? Any chance?
Oh, listen, here's the thing. He would have gone in the past. It's just that they wouldn't fucking bend the knee. They wanted him to do trials, and then they were like, oh, we're testing a bunch of people. And then that is where the stubbornness comes in. So rather than just wait it out and then get his chance to be on CLG or these other teams, he would be like, the problem is he's the guy, right, where if, say this is a job interview and you're asking like a lot of tough questions, like, well, you know, I mean, we can't, you know, listen, we can't commit to it right now, but, you know, what would you think of coming to another job interview as well, like where you and a few people took an exam? He's like, listen, I don't need to take an exam. I'm already one of the best in my field. You're like, yeah, but we may be more confident. He's like, fuck you, I'm out of it. I don't want your fucking job. That's like who Forgiven is. So the problem there is it'd have to be a direct option, right? So put it this way, if 100 Thieves want to break that fucking checkbook out and start doing this, yeah, maybe then we can start talking, because I don't know whether he would handle living in NA.
That sounds a lot like you, Dorian. Like, where you need to go for a second interview and you're like, fuck this. Like, I'm already the best in my field.
Of course.
No wonder you like him so much.
Yeah, I told people many times I relate to players like this.
Okay.
You know, the best. But a bit of an arsehole as well. And you've got to deal with that. That's the price. That's the price of admission to the show, baby.
Well, maybe if both of you guys were less of an asshole, you guys had an even more flourishing careers.
Could be. Well, here's the thing. That doesn't apply in my particular case, though, because here's the thing. There's two elements to that. I'll do it quickly. One, in my case, actually, Loco, people don't know it, I'm probably one of the best team players in the entire fucking history of online content. Like, I literally bring people who've never done shows before. Yo, there's two people in this fucking call right now. You both do shows.
Yeah,
I know way better than it's just I hide that behind the scenes. People don't see that overtly. And then the second angle is
last time we didn't listen to Loco, you yelling at me. I agree. Generally, you have been a great team player. You have been a great team player, but at times you have your bursts.
I'm not a great team player when I do a short fucking 8 a.m. local time after an entire day working on a different game. You're like, whatever you say. Anyway, that's the side. Secondly, the other aspect, which I actually think Veteran was going to agree on there, is it's all easy and well and good to say that, okay, I'll give you a very, very quick analogy, right? Because this ties back into the teamwork thing. So do you want to know what one of the biggest misnomers of all time, misconceptions in sports history is? It's that Michael Jordan won all those championships and that Scottie Pippen was like lucky to play with Michael Jordan. Anyone who says that doesn't know basketball, because Michael Jordan's flaw in the teamwork philosophy of overlaps is Michael Jordan was the best player and incredibly driven and a massive arsehole who literally tore apart teammates and ruined their confidence. Scottie Pippen was someone who had a really good rounded skill set, didn't have the killer edge, so Michael Jordan was covering that for him, but was the best teammate. He was the guy where if Michael Jordan's too harsh on you, he takes you to the side after the practice and goes, listen, don't ignore that. Like, you know, he was just frustrated. Like, I'll get you the ball. Like, you're doing a good job. Just that's the point, right? So in this particular scenario, someone like Forgiven, the same thing that makes him stubborn and makes him way too demanding of his teammates is what makes him so insanely good. So I agree. You hope one day they turn the corner and the little light goes off and they go, actually, if I just become a bit cooler as a person or chill out a little bit on a guy who's sort of fucking the game up, maybe we improve. Yes, I agree. That's when all the success would almost certainly come. But it's hard to criticize it because there's so few players could ever be that driven to be as good.
So he needs a Scottie Pippen.
Kind of. Like, that's actually one of the problems. I mean, Veteran, maybe you could talk to this. One of the problems is he's very rarely had players he could properly trust. And in fact, here's an interesting detail. If you look at Forgiven's career, oftentimes the players he bigs up, you'll be like, what? That guy wasn't even that good. Like for example, he will never publicly say anything bad about N-Rated. And N-Rated as an individual support was pretty whack in that SK team. Like, his best days are well gone. Unlimited, when he was in Copenhagen Wolves, he'll never say anything about this guy. That guy wasn't a fucking good support player. The point is, if he can trust you, he won't attack you in that way. He's one of these people who has trust issues. Anyway, you were a coach, Veteran, so give me some thoughts.
I mean, the thing about Forgiven's Forgiven's temperament when it comes to team environments is that first it was mostly focused on supports. So if these are the supports that want to play with him again, then these are the supports that can definitely handle it. When it comes to other players on the team, he mostly kept to himself about his opinion on that, with some exceptions. And one of the exceptions that I'll bring up is when Selfie subbed in. I don't know if you remember that Selfie subbed in onto H2k way back then, because we had visa issues with Ryu. And during one scrim set, where Selfie had messed up something really early on in the game, Forgiven simply said to him, you can't do things like this, you're not an amateur anymore. And I think that was probably the absolute best thing that Selfie could have heard at that point. And I think it's been like a really beneficial thing for Selfie to carry with him. And these are the kinds of things Forgiven says. The paragraphs he lays out on his support, but these are the kind of small things that he'll say to them. And even like pre-game on stage, he will tell people like, play your own game. We are better than these guys. Just play your own game, and we can win. Like stuff like stuff like this. Like, it's not like he's short and he's snappy, and sometimes the things he says might seem harsh. But I really do like some of the things that he says. Unless you're a support player, in which case he's going to give you 3 paragraphs on how you should play the laning phase. You idiot fuck. But all these support players keep calling back to him. So apparently it's worth it. So that will be my comment on it.
Okay, let's move on. I think we talked on this one long enough. What do you guys think about Trick joining Schalke?
It doesn't solve their problem. If anything, it might exacerbate their problem.
What do you think exactly is their problem? Yeah, go ahead.
Every single team figured out that this is like Vitality. Vitality only particular style, and every team figured that out. Schalke can only play when bot lane, or specifically Ignore, is able to roam freely with the jungler. And if you give him the window to do that, then Memento Ignore are fucking phenomenal duo. They take over the entire game. Game is won. But if you prevent that, if you just prevent Ignore and Memento being able to hook up in this manner, the game is over. Because they cannot play around topside. And this is not to say Memento can't play around topside, because Memento has shown on many teams that he can play really strongly around topside. This is just a very specific Ignore thing that he also got abused for in BBQ Oliver's. This is something that he was going to get abused on in Misfits, and then the meta changed to Ardent. No one expected this to become the case again. And then Misfits were like, suckers, you guys are all playing fucking Lulu bot, and we have our Ardent on our mid laner and our jungler, and our boy is on Leona Alistair. That was probably the best series that Ignite ever got to play in his life, because, you know, he fucking 5 million IQ'd his way back into that playstyle in that particular series. But being pigeonholed into this sort of thing, teams are very easily adapting to this sort of thing right now. I don't think you eliminate the fact that you are pigeonholed into this playstyle still, just by bringing on a guy who played this playstyle with him on a dead last team. Worse than dead last, because he didn't even qualify after they were 10th, right? So I think this will exacerbate the issue, if anything. There was probably something more internal, because I know Memento from his tweets and stuff clearly had like a loss of confidence and all of this kind of stuff, and that happens when you start going fucking 0-6 when teams figure you out, you know? But this doesn't solve the issue in the same way that bringing on Amazing solved the issue last time. Bringing on Amazing is not going to solve the issue this time, by the way, in case you guys think that that's what you need to fix. Because last time, this was literally a team with no direction. And I have a philosophy that, like, bad direction is better than no direction at all. So far be it from if Amazing is like a phenomenal jungler or anything, far be it from if Amazing's mind about the game is even phenomenal or anything. This guy has the personality to be an in-game leader, and he was absolutely what they needed, and he made all the difference then. Full props to him. If you guys need a leader, then he is the kind of guy that you should be bringing on. But this doesn't solve the problem the same way the roster change solved problems the last time. I would assume it's because Memento has a loss of confidence, and because I don't think he's being fired, right? I think it's like a rotating thing.
I have no idea. I didn't read the detail on it. I just know that Trick joined Schalke.
Sure. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. I don't think it solves the issue.
Duncan, do you want to go?
Right, as Veteran said, we've already seen these two players play together, Ignar and...
They got relegated together.
Yeah, like, and now, to be fair, like, yes, they were playing at LCK, so it's not like they were just playing fucking scrubs, but like, I watched some of those games. Like, those were fucking underwhelming games, mate. Like, that was a team that actually, at the time, by the way, should not have been last place. If you looked at their actual roster, like, they had some okay pieces. Problem was they just didn't really work together very well, which doesn't make sense for all the narratives, does it? Because Ignar's supposed to be the super good engaged support. Trick was the fucking MVP of Europe, literally in a split, if you go back a couple of years. That alone, if you have a really good support and jungle combo, that alone should get you a lot of fucking wins. So I don't know why they're recreating it here. I don't really know that like bringing in Trick, as you say, is going to fix any of these problems. Like, actually, I have a question. Do you know, Veteran, what Trick's level of fluency in English actually is?
No, I don't. I don't actually. I can't. Some people have told me, but I can't obviously recall. So anything I say right now would be bullshit.
Because there's one of my problems there is, like, Memento obviously has vastly superior English. So I'd almost rather just work with him and try and fix the issues than bring in someone who might have limited English, added to a team that has another Korean on it, and then hope that they're somehow going to turn the game around for us. I don't feel like that's a great mix overall right there. So, like, I personally always thought in G2, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I always thought Trick was actually overrated. I think in G2, everyone knew which way their fucking bread was buttered. You played through perks. You had a sick fucking hold bot lane, expected his job in top lane. Like, I don't think it wasn't like rocket science in that team. It was like paint by fucking numbers. So you knew you were going to play off side lanes and the perks was going to dive with you. It's like none of this shit needed like insane comms or like shot calling, etc. So I just don't really know what the point in the move is. This seems like a move where it's like, oh, Trick used to be good and is Korean, let's just get him. It's like, what does it solve?
So I heard Trick's been not doing well on TCL, the Turkish league.
Ninth place.
And also, what is it? So when 100 Thieves brought Bang and Afro, or Hui and Afro together, I was like, at least somewhat hopeful, because I was like, okay, this is something that's proven that it worked in the past before. There's at least proof that this shit worked in the past before. The proof with Trick and Ignar is they got relegated together. I'm not sure that's a duo I want to kind of reunite and like be like, okay, this. And we talked about how Gorilla Max Floor is like the core of Misfit shot calling, and usually the jungle support is the core of the shot calling. You're bringing over a core of shot calling that's failed, like so.
That's proven not to work. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
People were on my mentions saying it's about synergy, Veteran. Hey, these guys played together so long. I'm like, basically, you mean we know for a fact that they don't have good synergy.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
If you dated someone and like you romanticize about it, because oh man, the relationship used to be so good. Like she used to get me. Like we were on the same level. Like I remember how she took care of me. Then maybe you can see yourself getting back together with your ex-girlfriend. But when she's fucking crazy, like when she like was rude to your friends, like when she would yell, when she would always be late, like you don't romanticize about going back to the crazy ex-girlfriend that you did not have good synergy with, and this is exactly that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like their issues are that if they lost, I mean, you attack them the same way that you attack Fnatic, I think. In the sense that if you disrupt their ability to play around bot side, they lose, but it's for completely different reasons. Like, there's a lot more leeway for Fnatic to get back into the game. The problem is, get off your fucking phone, Loco. The problem is that with Schalke, even if Oda1 was like steamrolling ahead, like that fucking monster game where he was like 8-0 and shit like this, you still have Memento Igna on the other side of the map having to play around that, and it blew my mind to see all the fucking time, and it's just not a tenable way to play. And Trick's just going to enable that kind of thing more and more and more. Like, they didn't have an issue getting upset fed. They had an issue of actually playing the game out properly on a very specific manner that I don't think is because of Memento, based on past experiences with them.
All right, to defend myself, I'm gonna what I'm checking is LS tweets, because we're gonna be talking about some of the LS tweets and his viewpoint on LEC.
I have to go to bed soon, so let's get on to that.
Okay, that's why I'm checking my phone. I'm not texting girls.
So basically, the discussion we're actually going to have here, I assume, is that LS, right? You know what? Here's the problem. LS has two problems as a person, right? Which is, I've even told him this directly. He gets basically lumped in with what used to be the caricature that Monty used to always get. So people used to say about Monty, he just supports people because they're Korean. And secondly, that he always thinks every Korean team would beat all the Western teams. Now, neither of those are actually true. Like, there are some very famous examples of Monty picking Chinese players to be the best player or be the best at a role. There are a lot of examples of where Monty would have told you, no, if you'd have taken whatever Cloud9, TSM, they could have beaten, the sixth best Korean team. The problem is what LS has done with these tweets is make himself into that exact caricature that Reddit used to have of Monty, because what he basically said was, like, first of all, he went with a really weird contrarian pick where he said that Team Liquid is better than all the European teams. Now, at the moment, most NA fans don't even think Team Liquid is the best team. So the idea that they're already ahead of G2 and everyone is already wild. And then the second one, we'll go one by one. The second one is that he also said, and this is probably the most egregious part, is he said that, like, KT Rolster and what was the other team? Do you remember? Jin-Air. And Jin-Air obviously is the most egregious one, because Jin-Air is fucking shit. He said that these teams would get wins if they were in, was it in LEC?
In LCS that they would beat up they would beat G2, that they would beat LCS teams.
Yes, there we go. So obviously both things basically are bizarrely like anti-European almost in the slant. Like he's going heavily against Europe as a region. So let's go. Which one do you want to go with first?
Okay. Well, I just want to preface with this. I don't think LS is a stupid person, and he actually believed these things. I think LS is a smart person.
By the way, if you believe this, you should say it. I think that's your job as an analyst.
Yeah. No. I don't think he believes it. I think LS is smart enough to not believe this shit. Ooh. I think LS knows how to get hits, and LS knows how to make his brand bigger. And he's actually succeeding very well in terms of, we're literally talking about him. I don't think LS believes any of this shit. I genuinely do not believe LS believes any of this shit. And he's doing it, to be controversial and to get people to talk about him. And we're doing exactly that. I have enough respect for LS.
I think it's more than that. I think the majority of this guy's fan base is American. The majority of this guy's fan base is North American, and the majority of this guy's North American fan base are a specific kind of North American, which is very prevalent in North America, which is the Korean elitist North American that believes that they are superior because they watch LCK and not crappy NA LCS, right? And this is the audience he has been pandering to for years and years. I'm not going to comment on whether I think he believes these statements. I'm not even necessarily going to comment on if these statements are correct, because I haven't watched enough North America to have a completely authoritative opinion on Team Liquid, except to say that the way that North America has always been, the way that it's always been structured, will always put an inherent disadvantage towards Europe, because these guys are just like, they're like the teenager that got all of daddy's money, right? And now he's spending it like he thinks a rich guy spends money, whereas a rich guy normally just actually invests his fucking wealth and gets richer. This guy's buying like a Lamborghini and thinks that that's going to, win him worlds or some shit. That's not the actual smart play. These guys are like kids playing with daddy's money. So I wouldn't believe it, but I can't authoritatively say that Team Liquids haven't somehow pulled it out of the fucking hat. But what I will say is I do think LS believes it, and not because he's pandering. And I wouldn't like to say that he's like pandering to his fucking NA Korean elitist fan base. But if he believed anything else other than this specific kind of thing, he wouldn't be the LS with the fan base that he has. So I think he's always had to believe this kind of thing just to be as popular as he is right now with the people that he is popular with.
I don't even want to talk about like the generic KT angle, because we both like.
By the way, do you see that? Do you see just so everyone's clear on this? By the way, basically what Veteran's saying is it's not that like LS woke up in the morning and he had a whole menu of things he could believe and he went, I'm going to pick this. It's that.
Yeah.
And the reason his menu only had this on is because we wouldn't know him otherwise. Like, he would just be, he wouldn't be the figure he is. So it's like the opposite. It's almost like natural selection has brought you the LS that exists today who would think this. And whether or not you think it's crazy, because obviously these are pretty out there statements. Like, I don't know many people that would fuck with either of them, quite frankly. I personally think he genuinely believes him. I'm not going to be cynical and say I think he's like just putting on.
You think he genuinely believes that Jenner would be OG?
The thing about
if
LS
he believed
is
anything else, then he's been lying for years and years and years, and no one lives a lie like that. If he didn't believe this stuff, he wouldn't have built up the fan base that he has in the way that it is now.
I mean, we can all admit, as entertainers and as content creators, we've said things that we truly don't believe in emphasize a point or to get a hit. Or to get views.
I don't know about that, man. Here's the thing. Like, I will definitely not say that. Like, as jokes, I say things
like you don't you say like, oh, TSM would be like fucking like, haven't you made like extra special comments about TSM?
I'm not joking, look. I've never lied in 18 years in
the only time where you could argue that I have done something like that is when you were permanently pushing me because I wanted to stick with I think red side wins the finals, and you wouldn't fucking let me go until I said I think Fnatic will win. And so I had to say Fnatic will just win. When the reality of the situation is I thought red side would fucking win the finals, but you wanted to be a little bitch about it, so I had to say it. That's the only time you could construe that I said something like that. I didn't say that for a fan base. I said that so I could get the fuck out of this goddamn conversation. Other than that, everything I've said I genuinely believe. This is also why sometimes you'll see that my beliefs evolve over time. The way that I think about teams evolves over time. And if you see that level of consistency in that evolution, then you can be fairly certain that the person that you're looking at believes what they say. And LS has evolved the way that he has thought about the game over time. He clearly isn't just a mouthpiece for a set of ideas that he will not give up no matter what.
Oh my god, I still cannot believe LS would legitimately think Jenner would beat OG or any of the LCS top.
Because here's the thing, okay, you know what? I'll do this. I haven't talked to him about this, so we'll talk about it on the other show. So I'll just speculate. Here's how I reverse engineer how he got to this position. So bizarrely, Jenner did have a couple of games this LCK where they would take like the top teams bizarrely into like, you know, the territory where they looked like they could beat them. Like even though I think they're a fucking terrible team, because sometimes they looked like, wow, how are they doing this against the best teams? I think in LS's mind, he took that and was like, right, well, they're only losing because the Korean teams are better and the Koreans are the best. And then he looked at LEC and he looked at LCS and he was like, so obviously LCS would be the worst example because LCS looked terrible. The quality of the games are fucking shit. And not only was like positions 4 to 10 actually not very good on a world standard in LCS, but then at the end of the split, all the top teams bled games. So it made it look like the whole region was a joke. So I can get the LCS one. The one I can't get, and obviously we'll bring this up on the episode with him, is the LEC one. Because it's like, I don't know in what universe Jenner's beating like G2. I don't know in what universe Jenner's like going to beat Origen in anything more than just a random one, best of one where they got some crazy draft. Like that one does seem crazy to me. But I can almost rationalize the LCS one.
Okay.
He is insanely biased. No one would disagree with that, but I think
he would even admit it.
You know? Yeah, but he believes his own bias. I think he believes what he is saying.
Yeah, I think he would admit that's his bias.
So also by lying, I don't mean like lying. I guess I meant to say hyperbolic or embellishment.
Maybe putting a bit of sauce on it. Sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Man, it's fucking crazy. Did you guys see the argument between him and Shakaraz and Broken Shark?
Yes, that was hilarious. Oh my god. That was so fucking funny, actually.
That was an example, by the way, of a pointless Twitter argument because that would literally either be solved in 5 minutes on a show or it would be a really amazing show. Like, why you waste gold like that on Twitter? I don't know.
But we haven't argued about gold paths on Twitter like it. We haven't argued about
all three of them love arguing on Twitter. Like, that's their secondary job. That's their secondary job.
Dude, some of these people were the original Twitter analysts. They were the guys who always knew, like, oh, that pick was the whole fucking reason. And then they have massive argument. Oh, the build should have been this for the third item.
Okay.
That's the minutia they love.
I was fucking king Twitter analyst back then, okay? And we should all move on from that, all right? If you're stuck over there because I'm not occupying this particular space right now because I'm talking about how people actually play the fucking game, then by all means do that, but you're only doing harm to yourself. because really there was so much more interesting things to talk about in that series. Talk about the build pass and the splice series because fucking nothing's happening for 40 minutes and maybe the build pass fucking wins them the game. Who fucking knows? The G2 Origin series, the way that G2 and Origin's playstyles clashed there was so fucking interesting. And I have to read about fucking Morellonomicon on my fucking timeline for God knows how long. Like, who the fuck cares, man? Holy shit.
I think they all care so much about Twitter clout, and it's very important to them that they sound smart in the Twitter argument.
This is where I'm gonna like support LS in this, but part of me when I see shit like that where they just try to go at LS about particular builds because they've done the fucking build maths or something like this, you're fucking doing that because if you released a fucking VOD review, it would look like shit compared to LS's VOD reviews, and you can't argue with him on that space in all likelihood. To be honest, please fucking grow up and get some decent game knowledge for once. It's not 2015 anymore. I hadn't talked to any fucking pro players back when I was doing all of that shit. Fucking, you all have access to these guys now. Just learn the fucking game and get this crap off my timeline. It's so pointless. It's so garbage.
Oh man, for the Twitter chains, like I look at this and I'm like, there's no winner in all of this. I did a Twitter argument with LS before. There is no winner in all of this. I wanted to jump in. I'm like, you're smarter than this. You're smarter than this. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Yeah, good. You stopped yourself. It's good. Don't contribute to the problem. Don't be.
The only thing is, though, one area where LS, I mean, you're right, he has his own brand. So he has his own fans that are going to ride with him no matter what. And in fact, I even notice, because he's had a lot of drama associated with his name, he has those kind of fans where it's like they almost thrive when he's being told that he's shit by everyone else in the community. And they're like, no, you just don't understand him. Like, he's a different kind of person. So, like, that almost does, in a mad way, work for him. He almost has, like, an anti-fragile quality to his brand where he'll never go away from that. But I will say this. Unfortunately, what LS probably doesn't realise is the reason why, because I'll tell you something, right? I get a lot of private information from people in the scene where I'll ask them privately something I know they won't talk about publicly. What do you really think of that player? Come on, you don't really think he's like the second best player as well. Come on, man. In that game, you said they were okay. You know that was like shit macro. And privately, most people will tell the truth. They'll say like, oh, well, you know, okay, I downplayed it a little bit for the public, you know, because I don't want to flame that player. He's a very famous player. Or, you know, you had like a situation with his family or some bullshit, you know. Or someone else will say, well, you know, I'm friends with the coach, so I know actually there was a problem elsewhere in the team there, whatever. It's like, here's the difference. LS is just doing that part, the private part, publicly. Yeah. And so as a result, unfortunately, his problem isn't that he has the stupidest opinions in the scene. It's that because no one else puts their crazy opinions out there, he's on his own with the crazy opinions. Well, if you know how Reddit people work, they're literally doing what the Shakara's angle is, which is like sitting there, not saying anything. So if you say something smart, yep, I knew that. Say something smart, yep, I knew that. And then they say, like I know this one thing that you don't know, therefore I have all of your knowledge and I have +1, I win. That's what Reddit does, because Reddit thinks of knowledge as linear. They think everyone who's an expert at League, it's like they think it's like Harry Potter. You have to start with book 1, book 2, book 3. They don't realize it's like a massive, broad thing. And some people are over here, got really good strengths, but weaker here. Some people are over this totally different area. LS definitely has his own a way of analysing the game. Some of it has massive benefits, I think. Some of it is he is an expert in his own regard. So his problem is he doesn't realise when he does something like this that everyone's going to say is stupid as a consensus. People will then write off all the rest of his shit and say, oh, he just doesn't know anything about the game.
Yeah.
Whenever anyone says, by the way, these people don't know anything about the game, I'll just go ahead and say this. Whoever's watching right now on the camera, unless you're literally like an LCS coach, they all know like magnitudes more about the game than you will ever know. They've forgotten more about the game than you will ever know about League of Legends. Just understand that. That's why you're watching and they're on the camera. It's not that we just haven't got to you and you're some secret expert. They know way more. Loco knows way more. Veteran knows way more. LS knows way more. Even probably those Twitter analysts know way more than you do. So like at best, or understand you are just the guy in the crowd eating the hot dog wiener going, Ron wasn't very good this game, but you couldn't do any of that shit. Like, you are nothing. That is all you are. So I'm not flaming you. Welcome to the show. This is just Loco, but that is all you are. So don't ever think you know more.
One thing I want to cap off with is I think one thing that really helped me view LS better was there's two persons. There's LS, the analyst, and there's LS, the content creator. And a lot of times they'll overlap, and a lot of times they'll be separate. And some statements is LS, the content creator speaking, and some statement is LS, the analyst speaking. I think LS, the analyst on camera, LS like casting LCK, will never say some of the stuff that LS, the content creator, is saying.
Sure.
So I think the generic comments were definitely LS, the content creator, and then I view it as, oh, it's LS being crazy, and I don't I don't fuck with that, but LS on cast or LS when he's actually analyzing, that's something I can fuck with. That's something I can understand.
Here's the thing, though. We will definitely have some fun with it when he comes on the show.
All right. For
Definitely.
sure.
100%.
All right.
That's
Anything?
the end, right?
Yeah, that's the end. Veteran, anything you want to shout out? Anywhere we can find you? Any shows that you do?
Yeah, I do Elisis United with Foreign every single week, and I also do articles various places, so just follow my Twitter for that, and also join my Discord, because I will be putting coaching up on there very soon. You'll just be able to ! coaching, and yeah, there'll be different prices for just VODs or for specific one-on-one coaching, so go for it.
Mm-hmm. Duncan, any final words?
No? Just, you know, nice to do a show with you, Loco. Still got that synergy that's a war right? And this show, neither of us can ever say anything as bad as what LS said. So win for all of us. We all look good on this one. There we go. Let's just end on that note, shall we?